I'm going to call the meeting to order. Ask everybody to stand with me and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I can only assume it's because it's my last meeting. No? Are there other reasons people came tonight? I think we'll all be disappointed. So this is the portion of our meeting reserved for public comments, and I know that we have some items on the agenda later on, specifically the development project that some people might want to comment on. So if you want to comment generally now, please do. We'll reserve some time later for after the presentations for that. And is it necessary, you think, for the elementary schedule? You think there's another one on the agenda that we should? Okay. So if you're here to comment on the development, the Colway development, but you want to wait to see what our presentation is going to be, we'll give you a chance later to talk after we've given our presentation, so you can see what the administration is going to present first. So if that's you, just remember when we come up to that conversation, you can raise your hand then. But other than that, is there anyone here that would like to make a public comment to the board tonight? In the back, yes, Mr. Johnson.
I need the microphone, or am I okay?
Please.
I know this is at the very end, but on behalf of the GEA, which if people don't know me, I'm one of the leaders of the Grafton Education Association, and on behalf of myself, I wanted to take a moment to thank Terry Ziegler for his time on the board. There was a article in a newspaper a while ago where I was interviewed, and I said one of the nice things about Terry is that afterwards, whether we agree or disagree, he'll always validate a concern, and I can always shake his hand. And that's been a long-standing situation. And so, again, on behalf of the GEA, on behalf of teachers throughout the district, and on behalf of myself, thank you very much, and enjoy your Mondays.
Thank you, James. Anyone else? Then move on with the other agenda items. We'll start with our consent agenda item. We have the statement of receipts and expenditures. Who had that this time? Do we have one? I do. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
Yes, motion.
Second.
Any questions for Jerry? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll move on to our action items. Mr. Nelson.
So there's a number of items on here, and then I have some things that I'll follow up with that have happened here recently as well. But I've asked Mr. Manti to come and present some things that some of our students at the high school have been recognized for. And so we'll start with those three pieces, and then I'll share a couple things, and then he has the high school presentation as well.
Good evening, everyone. I'll hear a lot about Grafton High School tonight. I'm excited to share these things with you. At the beginning of our meeting here, we have numerous students to recognize for many different accomplishments. And we're going to start by congratulating the following students who qualified for state competition in our musical, solo, and or ensemble competition. And we're going to start with our instrumental music students. So congrats to Samuel Aria, Dominic Boone, Jake Brennan, Joshua Brown, Emily Buski, Alexis Cabell, James Dempsey, Gavin Depius, Alyssa Fechter, Gretchen Geiser, Victor Geiser, Megan Gilson, Callan Hanley, Jillian Hurlinger, Cameron Hughes, Grace Ingham, Bryce Jobe, Evan Jobe, Jenna Close, who's in the audience tonight, Jenna, Dylan Knott, Caitlin Lanto, Alyssa Lanza, Dana Lemke, Sarah Menzel, Leona Meyer, Philip Mosen, Isabella Perrins, Alex Pavlik, Jacqueline Poyar, Danielle Rohde, Kate Rosenberger, Michael Seibold, Benjamin Turner, Joshua Turner, Sydney Wojcik, and Jonathan Zager. So, congratulations to all our instrumental music students for qualifying for state. That is an outstanding accomplishment. But now we're going to move on to vocal music, and we'll see quite a few names here as well. Tyler Arthur, Isaiah Bagley, Riley Balistreri, Johanna Brown, Josh Brown, Isaac Brust, McKenna Crown, Cody Daniels, Dominic Danner, Peter Danner, Grace DeStefano, Alden Didier, Haley Douglas, Lydia Fisher, Victor Geiser, Wilson Jones, Jenna Close, again in the audience, Lee Kotke, Elise Lewick, Kaylee Lewick, Neela Litke, Eliza Manzour, Juliana Melsheimer, Dominic Menzia, Sadie Monreal, Cannon Nash, Malena Oswald, Isabella Perrins, Morgan Ruska, Beth Schmidt, Abby Schmidt, Brianna Schulte, Michael Seibold, Cassie Soar, Zach Taylor, Lindsay Underwood, Nick Wilson, and Megan Winter. So congratulations to all those students for their musical accomplishments, both instrumental and vocal. Moving on, congratulations to the GHS competition cheer team for their second place finish in state competition, another outstanding accomplishment. Team members are Cameron Chrisman, Michaela Ferretra, Madison Flint, Lexi Garbish, Taylor Gerke, Madison Grabo, Alexis Green, Amber Kenow, Haley Kenow, Cameron Klaus, Emma Pergandy, Kendall Schmalz, and Cecilia Vanu. And last but certainly not least, we have recognition, and these two young ladies are in the audience. We're going to ask them to come on, step forward at this time. And I will introduce to you two members of the Bullhawks Co-op Gymnastics team. We have Abby Sabalka right here on the right, and we have Paige Arnold on the left. Both of these Grafton High School representatives, their team won the sectional championship, and they placed 6th in state level competition. At state, Paige placed 13th overall in the floor exercise, and Abby placed 3rd in the beam, 6th in the floor exercise, 10th in the vault, and 8th all around in the entire state. Both Paige and Abby also received academic all-state honors. We are happy to have them here. They're not going to demonstrate anything tonight, but they are open and free for questions from our board members.
How do you have enough energy to do all those things? Especially Abby, you in particular, you had so many events. How do you do that? Is that typical? I mean, do people do that many at state? It just seems like to be worn out.
You just have to qualify at sectionals for the all-around, and then you'll compete all 4 events. So, I don't know. There's lots of breaks too, so you're not going all the time.
How many years have you each been competing in gymnastics? Since what age?
I've been doing it since I was 3.
3.
Yeah.
Me too.
3? Outstanding.
I'm curious, and I should say I've gotten the chance to coach both these girls, so I'm really proud of them. What's the hardest skill you've ever done or attempted in gymnastics, both?
Well, for me, bars in general is like just really hard. It's always been my worst event, but so yeah, that's the hardest one for me.
Probably a front tuck on beam.
It's fair. Totally fair. I coach bars. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So we also want to recognize, starting on Tuesday, April 3rd, as we head off to spring break, we'll have a number of students going to Orlando, Florida. So, last year the board had approved our band and choir students going to Orlando, and so they leave on the 3rd. They're taking a coach bus, so it's almost a full day of travel. The band is participating in Disney's Your Instrumental Workshop, where they record their own soundtrack to a portion of a Disney animated feature. The choir participates in Disney's Disney Sings workshop, where they record an excerpt from a Disney animated feature film soundtrack led by a professional Disney vocalist. Then they also visit the Magic and Animal Kingdom for one of those days, and then they return Sunday, April 8th at 10:30. So great opportunity for our students to get to do some recordings with some Disney people, and I'm really looking forward to them being able to do that and experience that during that time. And then also Miss Hart and Miss Condon emailed following on what Mr. Manta had said we recognize a lot of our athletes, obviously, as we see here tonight. We also want to recognize our musicians who qualify for all state things, which is why we have the students that qualify for state in the musical solo ensemble. But we also have some students that have qualified for the all-state choirs and bands in the state of Wisconsin. And this is the real invite to state for musicians. So this is like really a big deal. They go to a camp in the summer where they work with a famous guest conductor, and they perform at the State Music Convention in Madison the following fall. So we have in mixed choir Niala Lutke, mixed choir Michael Seibold, in band Catherine Rosenberger, and in bass Benjamin Turner. So congratulations to those students. And then we also have some alternates that are selected. McKenna Crown, alternate for treble choir, Cannon Nash, alternate for mixed choir, and Jillian Herlinger, alternate for band. So 4 students who were selected, one of them Mr. Seibold's son, and very proud freshman father, I'm sure. But congratulations to those all-state musicians in that way. And then to put on your calendars, the board, you saw an email from Laura Stone about the BMO K-12 District Art Show. Is held Wednesday, April 18th from 6 to 7 o'clock. And then also this weekend, we had our a Grafton Destination Imagination team entitled That Wasn't Supposed to Happen. Very ironic. They competed in the scientific challenge against the top 18 teams in the state. They took first place. So they are going on to global finals held in Knoxville, Tennessee at the end of May. Ms. Kemper is their manager, one of our first grade teachers over at Woodview. The team had to choose an unlikely location for an amusement park attraction and create a skit that included 3 scientific principles in the operation of the attraction. They studied the digestive system to create the intense ride of a lifetime inside of a lion. The ride operates with pneumatics, hydraulics, magnetism, and air pressure, and their skit was noted for the humor they incorporated. They also competed in an instant challenge where they are given an active or building challenge, and they must use creativity, teamwork, and problem solving to come up with a solution in just a few minutes. Team members were Lauren Buck, Venus Hinohos, and Caleb Kemper, who are 7th graders at John Long Middle School, and Cora Kemper and Alan Z, who are 5th graders at Woodview. And the team's assistant manager is Elena Kinnear, one of our GHS seniors. You've seen Elena at one of our presentations earlier. And she's a former student of Woodview and John Long Middle School, and she was awarded a scholarship for her involvement in Destination Imagination. So that was very cool, and that just happened this weekend. And then also, with a lot of our focus being on school safety, there's been a lot of work at the legislature, at the Senate, and Governor Walker today just signed the school safety legislation, and we just talked a couple weeks ago as we renewed our membership in SWSA, and they continue to give us updates. So we're trying to make sense of the bill and what that means. So some of the highlights that have come out of it is that there will be a Department of Justice that's administering the school safety grants, so they'll be sort of overseeing these school safety grants. We're still unsure when those grants will become available. We're unsure how many recipients will receive a portion of that $100 million. Will it be allocated by number of students? Will it be allocated by region? We're unsure of that. There will be, the DPI is going to be working in conjunction with the Department of Justice, but it's unclear exactly what will be happening. And there will be some time needed for the DOJ to hire staff, determine how to structure it, and how to distribute the money. So as that comes along, we'll make sure we keep that inform the board and as well as our community. We are working on our construction projects now to make sure that all of those are building safety things for students. These grant opportunities will be an opportunity to further enhance that, but we're looking into what that means, and as that comes along and it sort of fleshes out, we'll pass that on, but that has occurred just today. And with that completes my presentation.
Okay, then we'll move it back to you, Mr. Mantine. Grafton
Yes.
High School presentation.
Okay. All right, thank you, Kara. So I have the honor of remaining up here tonight and talking with you about a Grafton High School update. First and foremost, it's an absolute pleasure to be able to lead Grafton High School, especially when you're working on a daily basis like students, the ones that we talked about tonight, that you've heard from tonight. You will hear from more of our students throughout this presentation as we focus on numerous different things tonight. I'm going to start by giving you just a brief overview of our building goals. 2 goals that we've consistently implemented since my arrival here, and I'm just going to brush over those to make you aware of those one more time. We are going to highlight our automotive program tonight, as there's a significant accomplishment occurring here. We're going to occurring in that department, and you'll hear from a couple of those students. We also have another student to recognize for a very special accomplishment tonight, and I'll dig into a couple of other items as well with my time here. Once I turn my clicker on. All right, so since I've arrived, we've worked on many things, but there are two goals that are consistent from year to year. And the first goal is one that focuses on academic achievement. And the academic achievement, the results that we look at on an annual basis, and more so than on an annual basis, is our overall ACT data. So when you look at ACT achievement at the high school, we're looking to increase our composite ACT score on an annual basis, both when you look at our junior year administration of the state exam. Okay, so we know that all of our juniors now take the ACT. They've taken it already this year as well in the winter. And then we look at the graduating class ACT scores as well. And I'm just highlighting the composite scores for you here tonight to keep things simple. You know that we've had past presentations where we've been in depth on our different subject areas, and we've dug into college readiness benchmarks and things that take a lot more time to dive into. But just as a highlight overall, if you look at our junior year state ACT composite scores, from when 100% of our students started taking this assessment in 14-15, you'll see that our composite scores had a nice little increase from 21.7 to 22.0 to 22.3. So we want to keep seeing that increase over the course of time. When you look below that, you can look at our graduating class. And our graduating class data, I started with the class of 2016, which is the first year, once again, where 100% of students had taken it and was reflected there. And you can see that we had a 22.3 with the class of 2016, a 22.4 with the class of 2017. We'll be awaiting our class of 2018 data in August. We're anticipating some good numbers there based on what we're receiving from ACT as far as our monthly reports are concerned. You can also read this vertically. So if you look at juniors that took it in 14-15, you can see when they graduated in 2016 right below how much their score increased by students taking the ACT for a second time, possibly a third time, and improving their scores. The same thing is true from our juniors in 15-16, which is our class of 2017. And once again, we'll be awaiting on that data for the class of 2018. Okay, so let's just kind of get you started here with one of our academic goals. So really, where the heavy lifting takes place is within our 100-day plans. And this is not meant for you to be able to read. I know it's small. What I put it up here is more so for recognition of the document, because I've shared this with you prior. This right here is our 100-day plan for March through May. So we had our building level TLC team work with administration to craft this document for our last couple of months of the school year. And within this document is where the work takes place that hopefully leads to our increased academic achievement on a measure such as the ACT. Our focus continues to be focusing on rigor for all students. We want all of our students to be exposed to as rigorous of curriculum as possible, where it is productive for them. So where it says in box 1, problem identification, we're continuing to look at rigor. Strategies that we're using to address that, we are looking heavily at disciplinary literacy. So we're looking at reading and writing across content areas, and then also working as professional learning communities in developing what we're calling common formative assessments. Box 3 is our goal there, and once again, I just wanted to show you for the document purposes, but what I really wanted to do is kind of show you this in action and talk to you a little bit about this as an example. So this is last Monday at our faculty meeting. So we want, the board wants to know how we're taking our 100-day plans and actually putting them in action. It looks great on paper, and all the activities sound good and look good, but what's happening actually with our faculty? So this is an example. Monday at our faculty meeting, we rolled out our most recent 100-day plan, the March through May plan, which I showed you the first page of. And these are two of our faculty members, Brian Durst and Alyssa Bloom, sharing a piece of the 100-day plan with our faculty. And this has become a far more collaborative process, a process that our teachers that are part of our TLC, our Teaching and Learning Committee, are starting to take the lead on, which is great to see. And once again, this is an arm or an extension of Diana's larger TLC that we have the building groups present at each level. So to show you a little bit more up close about what Brian and Alyssa were doing, is they were sharing this March through May 100-day plan checklist with our faculty. And what we've done is we've started to develop these checklists in terms of here's what our faculty needs to do, here's what we're going to be conducting during this time frame. So we want to make sure there's accountability with our plan. And our TLC feels strongly about that we're not simply completing items, but we're also providing professional learning for our faculty members, and we're collecting data that we need to make sure that our plan is making the progress that we want it to make. So just to give you an example, if you would look at March 28th, which will be this Wednesday, we will be offering what we're going to call a Common Formative Assessment CFA Boot Camp. And we're going to have all of our faculty in here on Wednesday morning, which is our late start morning. And we have a presentation prepared on all feedback that we've collected from the Quarter 2 and Quarter 3 Common Formative Assessments that our course alikes have submitted. We've went through all of them. We've provided feedback by content area, and we'll now be looking at those assessments with departments, providing them feedback, and giving overarching themes as reminders in terms of what we're doing well with this process and what we need to improve upon. So that's not simply a checklist, that's providing professional learning when necessary to our staff. April 9th through the 20th will be on learning walks throughout our building for 2 weeks, getting into teacher classrooms and looking for these practices that should be occurring within our classrooms. Focused on the overarching theme of standards-based teaching and learning, which Diana has spoken with you about on numerous occasions. Our departments have the autonomy to create their individual goals, and they're going to give us an update on that April 20th in terms of where their departments are at with their personalized goal. And then we have our final Common Formative Assessment, which will be submitted to us in the fourth quarter, and a reflection form that needs to be completed about what type of analysis was done with that assessment data. So that's what Brian and Alyssa were moving through with our faculty. I think our faculty has appreciated this type of approach and showing them here's a quick summary of our plan and some of the things that will need to be done throughout the course of that timeline. And all that will take place within about less than 3 months. So I certainly wanted to show that to you so you can see it in action. And once again, one final point that I want to make, all of this hopefully points back to the first slide that I displayed, which was improving our overall achievement. Our second goal, I shared this with you last year, share it again. We are looking to increase our percentage of students who complete a post-secondary course while they attend GHS. You know, personally, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, I'd like to get us to 100% of our students completing a post-secondary course while they're still in high school. Giving that experience while they're here and they have support from our teachers, they have support from families at home. This is something that I want to continue on this path of increasing our percentage of students that are able to do this. When you say post-secondary, courses that qualify for this are any of our advanced placement courses that we offer at Grafton High School, any of our dual credit courses. Dual credit examples would be our Project Lead the Way courses, our college credit and high school course, which is affiliated with our world language program. Transcripted courses would be our advanced automotives course, our accounting class. They're transcripted with, for example, a local technical college, MATC. The class of 2017, we had some good news. 87% of our class completed a post-secondary course. That was 3 percentage points above the class of 2016, so we were at 84% with the graduating class of 2016. What strategies are we using to attain this goal? We're certainly pursuing new offerings for students. One example of that would be the AP Human Geography course, which we'll be offering for freshmen next year as the first time that course is offered. So we have to expand opportunities to make this goal a reality. And our counseling department also keeps a close eye through student schedules during the scheduling process. So they have a spreadsheet of all of our students by class, who's taken an AP course, who's taken a Project Lead the Way, who's taken a course in business that meets transcripted credit, and we know the exact students who may not have something that they've done, and we really try to match something with them. We haven't been able to do that with everybody, but we know that we need to expand opportunities to try to make that goal a reality. So I think we're doing things to move us in the right direction. And finally, on our post-secondary goal, I just wanted to give you same thing that I displayed with you last year, just so you can see where we're at. When it came to our overall percentage, we're up 3%. When it came to advanced placement, we remained at 73% of the class. 29% took a Project Lead the Way course, that's plus 1%. 13% took a Business and Information Technology course, up 3%. 12% Family and Consumer Science, up 3%. 7% Technical Education, and that stayed the same as the year prior. So you can see within that group of 195 students, comparatively from when we started tracking with the class of 2016, where we fall. So now we move on to the fun part. So that kind of gives you an idea as to where we're at and the consistency that we're trying to have with our goals as a high school. So our first group of students that I want to speak with you tonight have accomplished something significant. They were state champions as far as their ATOM competition, and they will be moving on to a national competition in New York City. And that's really all I'm going to say. I'm not going to steal any of their thunder. At this time, I'm going to ask Nick Schmidt and Trevor Geiske to come up and to talk to you a little bit about our automotives program.
All right, so I'm Nick, and I've been in the automotive program for the last 4 years at Grafton High School. And to me, the automotive program has really helped me further my interest in automotive, and in turn kind of point me in the direction of my future career.
And I'm Trevor, and as well, I've been taking a lot of the automotive courses here at Grafton High School for the past 4 years, and it's kind of helped spark an interest that I've always had in mechanical things and automobiles, and that's also put me on a path to what I'd like to do for the rest of my life.
We just completed this ATOM competition, and ATOM is the Auto Dealers of Mega Milwaukee competition, and in this competition we worked on a 2018 Subaru Forester, which was donated for the day from Summers Subaru, and we completed, with the car. We had to fix the car because it was, completely dead, and there's a series of other workstations that we had to complete.
As well, in the competition, we took a written test to test our basic automotive knowledge, varying across every component of the vehicle. And then, like Nick said, we did work on the car to debug it, and then some various workstations as well for just about every system on the vehicle.
Once we won the competition, we were awarded the all-expense-paid trip to New York City to compete at the national level. We were both awarded scholarships, and we both were awarded about $4,000 worth of tuition.
This is the vehicle we're actually training on right now for the New York competition. It's a 2018 Lexus ES 350. It's about a $45,000 car, so no pocket change, but it's a very good vehicle, we believe, for this competition to be training on. It's simple yet complex in terms, and in this competition, just like here in Milwaukee, we'll be approaching the car as it's bugged by some Lexus engineers and representatives, and we'll have to fix those bugs to make it a working, functioning vehicle again to gain points.
We've been training on this car for past probably a month and a half every Sunday, getting to know the car inside and out and learning different symptoms the car experiences and when many different functions malfunction, when we make it do that. And we've been training with Lexus specific diagnostic equipment because that's what we'll be using in the New York competition, so we can accompany ourselves to how the different softwares might work and how the car reacts to a lot of different symptoms that they can make it happen on the competition day. So the New York Auto Show, the competition is an aspect of the New York Auto Show, and there's about 38 teams competing in a large room, and there's not every team has the same car. There's probably 10 or 12 different cars that amongst all the teams. They're all bugged similarly, but as the car gets more sophisticated, let's say a Mercedes, those bugs will be different than what you'll find on a Chevrolet, making the skill level pretty linear throughout the competition.
Overall in the competition, we believe there's about 35 to 40 vehicles from teams all over the United States, ranging from coast to coast, that will be there representing their states, and auto groups. And like Nick said, there's just a variance of vehicles, so it'll be good to see the plethora of vehicles that's available and the problems that they'll have.
A lot of the issues they place in cars, they're all multi-step problems, that we follow Lexus information to track down the problems, to diagnose what the potential issue might be, and to in turn get the car back into working condition.
So, we wish these two young gentlemen, and not only are they great with autos, they're great students overall, and they're just really great young men. So it's great to have them representing us in a national competition. So best of luck to you guys. I'd like to open it up if the board had a question or two for Nick or Trevor.
What are your plans for after graduation?
I'm going to Michigan Tech to pursue a career in mechanical engineering because I'd like to be an automotive engineer.
And I'll be attending UW-Platteville to pursue a degree in mechanical engineering as well.
How many different software platforms are there in the Lexus ES?
Well, the Lexus ES has about 40 different computer modules throughout the car that control pretty much everything in the car. Like via the laptop scanning tool, you can pretty much do anything. For example, last night we were adjusting the power driver seat with the computer because it's all computer controlled through the diagnostic equipment, and each manufacturer has a different version, but their own version of a program that operates their vehicle and diagnoses it.
You guys are pretty technical savvy with computers too. That's impressive.
So how long do you get in the competition to do all the fixes?
About 3 hours per person, so, or for the team.
It's a two-day competition, and the first day is a workstation, similar setup to the initial state competition in Milwaukee, where they'll have a bunch of different cars and a bunch of different sponsors, where we'll do many different actions. Like we practiced last Wednesday doing a compression test on a Chevrolet Malibu, and we got that from Newman Chevrolet just so we could practice, because that's one of the work stations that we'll have to complete in New York. And that's also about 3 hours each, not each station, but for the whole competition that day. And then it's an additional 3 hours on the car the next day.
You guys have had so many highly successful teams precede you at these competitions. Do you guys feel extra pressure to perform, or do you feel like teams fear you when you walk in the door because of where you come from?
Well, there's always pressure to do well. You always want to do well, especially when preparing for a large amount of time like this competition. But there will definitely be no sadness in whatever place is taken. But we absolutely will do our best, and our goal is definitely to win. So.
And it is kind of neat, with our predecessors, how successful they've been, to kind of continue on a legacy of success, and I like being able to do my part in that, continuing on the success for Grafton.
So to speak of the legacy of success, when you look at setting up a program and you want to maintain success over time, in the Atom competition on the left, since 1994, these are our results. Highlighted in yellow are all the first place finishes. And then on the right would be the national places that have taken place. So certainly they're following on with the tradition of excellence, which we'd like to see for many and more of our programs here at GHS in terms of that tradition of excellence from year to year. Mr. Hayter, I just wanted, is there anything else that you would like to add to these young men?
No, they did a great job. They're part of a legacy, as they said. We love first place. No pressure, just the seniors at all. That's pretty excellent. But we don't have the slide of where everyone's placed, right? But if you look at the people that are in the right-hand column right there, we were even judged by one of our past competitors. So there's teachers, there's tech college teachers, there's high school teachers there, there's engineers there's people who work the hotline on the Ford and the other Chrysler, for instance, corporations in problem-solving hotlines in Detroit. There's just people who are doing amazing things with vehicles, owning their own businesses, running service departments. So every one of those persons has some tie still to the automotive industry. Some of them very electronic, some of them very kind of out a little bit in the field on things, but a lot of them are like out in the field, like Mitch, second place 2011 there in the Nationals, runs, unbelievable, a national park, Yellowstone National Park vehicle recovery program. so he still works with automobiles, but he's dragging them out of the park and fixing stuff like that. So he sleeps in tents at night and he goes around the park. This is bizarre, right? And Colin, third one from the bottom right there. Colin is in Italy and he's running a motor pool for the armed services over in Italy. It's just amazing. People are across the world, obviously, and across the country doing stuff like that. It's their own businesses, and unbelievable. There's kids from other schools there. So I go through a couple of years, like last year, we had 2 kids from other schools. We don't have Grafton student qualified, but they were educated here in Grafton. They work up the way a little bit. You got some guys who are from Fort Washington, some other schools here too, that are part of it. So it's a big, happy automotive family, really. And everyone's really working hard. So good luck to these characters. Right?
Yeah. Thank you, Carl. And thanks, guys, very much. So I have one more accomplishment I'd like to share with you, which was very recently announced. I'm going to ask Jenna Close to come on up here, please. Jenna just found out last week that she was a Herb Cole Scholarship Award winner. So we want to congratulate Jenna tonight. She was awarded a Student Excellence Scholarship, and she was one of 191 students in the state to receive one of these scholarships. And quite honestly, that's great. And I'm going to read you just an excerpt of the letter. What I want to share with you first is that's a $10,000 scholarship for Jenna. That's an amazing amount of money as far as a high school senior is concerned. So in her letter, it says specifically from Herb Cole, "It's my pleasure to inform you that you've been selected as a 2018 Herb Cole Excellence Scholarship recipient. You were chosen to receive this $10,000 award because of your exceptional scholarship, leadership, citizenship, school, and community involvement." So we want to congratulate Jen, and what I asked her to do was just to speak for a minute or so in terms of maybe her application and how Grafton High School helped her achieve that prestigious award.
Well, hello. I would just like to start off by saying thank you for giving me the opportunity to say a few words this evening. And so for the application process for the Herb Cole Excellence Award, this started in the fall for me. I started by collecting detailed information concerning my participation in music, speech, athletics, school and community activities, leadership, and work experiences. The application required the amount of years I have participated in each topic and an essay explaining the value of participation in each of these activities. And this was a very intense application process, as I also needed 3 letters of recommendation. The community member that I chose was Sue Tarowski, as she is my mentor for the American Legion Auxiliary. The teacher I chose was Mr. Kalina, and I worked with him in a adaptive physical education class. And I chose Miss Isabel, who is my counselor, and I've worked with her closely throughout my 4 years at Grafton High School. And I am truly thankful for them for writing letters of recommendation for me and mentoring me throughout my years of Grafton High School. So in January, successful applicants were advanced to the statewide selection committee, and then Mr. Mantide notified me on Monday, March 19th, that I had been selected for this award. And so I am truly honored and humbled to have accepted this award. So through my hard work and determination, I was able to maintain high academic standards, be involved in many leadership roles, both within Grafton High School and my community, participate in sports and music programs, and community service as a priority. I would like to thank the Board of Education for your part in advancing the academic curriculum at Grafton High School. I have successfully completed many AP classes, which I believe have helped me prepare me for college. Grafton High School has provided me the platform for strengthening my leadership skills, as I was Vice President of Student Council, being junior and senior class Vice President, President of Environmental Club, sectional leader in band, and many other leadership roles. Through my participation in sports, I have learned to lead by example, how to accept constructive criticism, and to be a team player, all while maintaining sportsmanship. I have excelled in music programs, both vocally and instrumentally, at Grafton High School, and am thankful that Grafton supports the music program. Community service has been a major part of my life since I was a child. Through school system, has provided me many opportunities to reach out to the community through the numerous clubs that I'm a part of. Skills I've gained through my education at Grafton High School, I've applied to my leadership roles in the community, whether it be in Girl Scouts, St. Vincent de Paul Youth Chapter, American Legion Auxiliary, or the St. Joe's Christian Formation. I am truly appreciative of the faculty, administrators, and counselors who have encouraged me, supported me, and challenged me throughout my high school career. I would like to thank the Board of Education for your role in continuously improving student learning, providing opportunities to excel academically and in the arts, and creating an environment for student success. I am truly honored to represent Grafton High School as a Herb Cole Excellence Scholarship recipient. So thank you very much.
Any questions or comments for Jenna?
Where do you plan on going to college?
I'm going to go to Concordia University, and I got accepted into the Accelerated Master's Degree Program for Occupational Therapy.
Very good.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right. And I will pull out. We're running short on time. I know. I was trying to close with 2 informational items for the board. Recently, starting in November, Grafton High School has started a scheduling committee. Kind of seems to be a theme here across our district. But we've had 6 meetings to date. We have 10 teachers on our schedule committee meeting. Driving factors behind creation of this committee. Number 1, we are looking at the potential additional option for students. So students right now can take 7 courses through our 7-period day. We're looking at expanding that to a potential 8th option for our students. I have received countless feedback since my arrival 2.5 years ago about the need to have another option for our kids. That comes from our students, it comes from our parents, okay? And I hear it frequently, so that was certainly a driving factor behind why we're starting to have the conversation. We want to look at time for student intervention, enrichment opportunities, and also assistance from classroom teachers within the school day. How do we build those within the school day? We want to look at options. You know, we have our Black Hawk time, but also look at what other options are present and out there and available. What could a different schedule provide us in this area? And then also we're highly taking a look at the schedule and how it relates to student mental health. We believe that how we structure our day can help support mental health that is at an acceptable level. It's where we want kids to be. We want that level of stress to be right where it needs to be, not too high, not too low, and we really want to look at that. We believe the structure of a day can really help with that. So those are 3 driving factors that are really the backbone of our committee. So far, like I said, we've met on 6 occasions. We are just finishing a survey process. Students took a survey, teachers took a survey, the parent survey closes on Wednesday. I'll be sending another reminder out to our high school parents where we ask questions based on our driving factor. Our committee will next begin to analyze this data, take a look at it, and determine our next steps overall. We're looking for the committee to provide a recommendation in the fall, right around that timeline of 2018. Any new changes would not go into effect until 2019-2020. So we're truly looking ahead at the future. You will hear far more on this topic over time. It was just a great time to introduce it to you tonight because we have been getting to that point where we're gaining some traction in what we're doing and with our conversation. So I wanted the board to be aware of that. And then a plug here, we've got to keep our great Hall of Fame nominations coming in. You can see here our 2017 Hall of Fame inductees, Barbara Josie, Mike Donahue, and the 2018 Hall of Fame nomination process is now open. You can find access to that paperwork on the Grafton High School website. We have copies in the main office. So I'd just like to say it publicly that anybody that knows somebody that may fit well into our Hall of Fame, we need nominations to come in to keep this great process moving forward. So to close on that, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about all the great things that are going on. Truly proud and happy to be the principal of such a great staff, great students, as evidenced tonight, the quality of young men and women that we have here in Grafton. So I appreciate the honor and I'm honored to be able to do that. So thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mantine.
Thank you.
Great work. So moving on, Mike.
Students, you are welcome.
Yeah, if anybody,
You're welcome to leave.
the boring part of the meeting starts now. You guys gotta go.
I wouldn't say that. I'm just saying I know they're busy.
It will give everyone a chance who would like to step out. That would be great.
Let them go.
Hi, Mike. You need to talk with us about some issuances and awardings.
Well, this will be completing the process that was started, that we attempted to start at the end of November, but no one did on the demand. You recall that, the note anticipation note, that was just to kind of review that process. The district went through a petition period to gain the borrowing authority that we're talking about tonight. In order to get to the 20 years, they had to issue the short-term note, and then we're refinancing that tonight to get to the 20 years, because that process only allows debt up to 10 years initially, unless you do it as a refinancing to get to 20 years. So we are completing that process. We took bids this morning. And I know the last couple of issues we've moved off of Mondays because they're usually very heavy, and done special meetings, which has been very successful, but the calendar is extremely light right now in the municipal market, so we didn't feel the need to have to go through that exercise. So we took bids this morning. We received 4 bids, which we were very happy with. This is a relatively small issue, especially when you spread it over 20 years in the marketplace. So we didn't anticipate it, and it's non-bank qualified. We've had that discussion before. We won't revisit that. But Raymond James came in with a true interest cost bid of 3.317%, which we're very happy with. And again, with 4 bids, I was pleased with that. Going to the next page, page 3. These are general obligation refunding bonds, refunding the note anticipation notes that were issued in December. The amount 2.16 million. Settlement date will be April 16th. That'll be the date the district actually received the funds. It'll be callable. First call date will be April 1, 28. Moody's affirmed the AA2. Since we just did an issue last month, I won't go into any much detail on that unless you have some questions. And again, the all-inclusive cost is higher than what was bid, and I'll explain that in a minute, at 3.4762%. Because of some IRS requirements, and Topher and I had met to discuss this, because we're deeming this back to last year to get it non-bank qualified, so we can keep the 10 million we did last month bank qualified. There's some limitations on some of the proceeds, so we had to craft the bid specs a little bit differently, whereas the cost of issuance were typically covered, built in. Here, as opposed to paying an interest payment, the district was going to be scheduled to pay, the district will be paying some of the cost of issuance. So when we add the cost of issuance that's becoming paid by the district, your all-in cost is higher than what the interest rate was bid. So that's a little different. And again, this is NBQ compared to the BQ issue we sold last month. Going to the next page, if you look at these middle two columns, you'll see the estimated energy savings. This is the source of funds the projects are going to generate, what's projected in terms of the savings. And you'll see that your payment right to the left of that is lower than the projected savings going forward, which was obviously a target that the district had as part of this process. So we're very happy with that. Rates have gone up since December, the tax law changes and different things, but still a very good result. And then the last couple pages are the rating report, which again, since we just reviewed last month, I won't take any time unless you have specific questions. So I'll conclude my comments with that.
So in the document that we received, the resolution, that'll all get completed based upon this winning bidding information, right?
Yes, I think the district should have received a final resolution from Tom Griggs today with the updated information. I don't know what you included in your packet. Was the draft resolution?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So we have the final, you have the final?
Yes.
Okay. And we've reviewed it as well, and we found everything in line. When Tom Griggs sends it to the district, also sends it to us, we review it to make sure that all the information is entered correctly into the resolution.
And all the certificates, then does Tom Griggs, the different certificates, they are responsible for preparing all of those?
You'll still have documents coming that the district will require signatures for those of you who've been through the process before. So the clerk, president, treasurer, so you're not quite done. Signatures will be required for those documents as well, similar to on other issues.
Have we used Associated before for the fiscal agency?
We have.
Okay.
Yeah, that's something the district started several years ago, and if you, we've used them on advance refundings, for defeasances. We do shop that around, but they consistently have the lowest cost and do a good job, so. We use them on probably, well, conservatively say 95% of our transactions, just because they've really specialized and they keep their costs really low. I think partially because of the volume that they do.
Any other questions for Mike? So we need a motion to approve.
Move to approve the resolution authorizing the issuance and awarding of the sale of $2,160,000 general obligation refunding bonds as presented.
Second.
Any other questions for Mike? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And it passes. Thanks, Mike. Good to see you. All right, we have an elementary school schedule discussion, Mr. Nelson.
I will turn it over to Mr. McMahon and Mr. Gunderson, who will lead with their team. There's different sides of the room here, and over here is the elementary scheduling team. And we will turn it over to them.
Nice. Thank you for welcoming us to the board meeting this evening. We have a great scheduling team for our elementary level gathered here this evening to talk about some next steps within our elementary scheduling process for the 2018-2019 school year. We have a great team here of teachers, administrators, and parents, and I'm just going to call off the members of our scheduling team committee. was Sarah Brightlow. I told each one to wave. Kristen Dillahunt, Jennifer Griffith, Kathy Korb, Beth Lambie, Caitlin Moon is ill tonight, Jim Norris, Mr. Perry is also absent, Chris Schultz, Mary Beth Starr. Administrators include Michael McMahon, Diana Kresovic, myself. And we also have parent representatives from each of the elementary schools with Kelly Klug from Kennedy, Kate Nessler from GES, and also Stephen Oakes from Woodview. So a little bit about tonight. We are going to be presenting some information to you. We are excited for you to hear the teacher voice and perspective of our elementary scheduling plans for the upcoming school year. And we're excited also to entertain any questions that you may have about our process to date.
All right, I'm Kathy Korb. I'm sorry, my voice is very ready for spring break, so hopefully it'll last here tonight. I'm very excited, as the scheduling team is as well, to present the schedule to you tonight. And going through a lot of different options, we really feel and we are confident that you will see that what we've come up with is a really great option. I think of it as a win-win for our students and for our teachers. Starting out, there are a few definitions that you'll hear throughout the presentation. The first one is encore, and what encore is what you would typically hear of as specials classes. So it's your art, music, PE, and library. And it's the encore block that you will see. Common planning time is the time that teachers, grade level teachers at the same time, are allowed to get together to collaborate, plan, and learn together. And they would be allowed to do this while their grade levels are all at an encore special. And then there are two different types of schedules, rotating and weekly. What we currently operate under now is a weekly schedule, so it's Monday through Friday. A rotating schedule is one that is based on rotating days, and depending on what your needs are, it could be a day 1, 2, 3, it could be day 1 through 6, and so forth. So in the fall, the specialization team came before you with recommendations for going into next year with 3rd through 5th grade. Should they teach core classes or would they remain specialized? And while they went through that process, they outlined some priorities and non-negotiables that need to be a part of our school day for the effective education of our students. And so when they outlined those, they kind of gave that as a charge to us. So they've made these decisions. They've outlined all the priorities and non-negotiables. Now, scheduling committee, now it's your turn to take all of these and to figure out a schedule where we can meet all of these student needs in the course of a day. So the first thing, and there's a link in your document that you have, so you could go to that link if you would like to, that outlines the ample instructional minutes, the core minutes that each grade level needs to have for effective instruction. They wanted us to have common planning time for each grade level within a school, blocking of schedules, so reading blocks, math blocks that were uninterrupted where flexible scheduling could occur. Investigating the I-time structures within our school day that we already have for intervention. And that piece of the puzzle is currently still being investigated. And then also the option of a late start, like the high school has their late start. Is there something like that that could occur within the elementary level to allow for that PLC time? Okay, so through the different research, the articles, and the collaboration that we looked for, the best way to meet those instructional needs, those non-negotiables, was through a rotating schedule. It's the best way to get in all of the minutes that are needed for the students. So what we did is we looked at districts that had elementary schools with 3 sections in the elementary school to see what they were doing and how their schedules were meeting the needs of their students. And through this, we also touched base with Bridget Neubauer, who was a Grafton teacher. She now teaches in DeForest, and she's at a similar school. We reached out to her. Her school had a schedule that they absolutely love, and so we were able to glean some great information from her. And then once we had all this information as a scheduling team, we sat down with all of our non-negotiables, all of our minutes that needed to be met, with our idea of a schedule that could meet these needs, and we kind of hammered through those on a day-to-day basis, grade-to-grade basis. Can we make this work? Can we fit everything into this schedule the way it would need to for our students? And then classroom teachers also had the opportunity to do this on a professional development day. They sat together with their grade level partners and were given a schedule of, this is where your encore block would be. Can you take all of these non-negotiables, plug it into the schedule, and can it work? So we wanted to make sure our teachers had that hands-on time with the schedule so that they can see, is this really doable on a day-to-day basis for us? So.
So one of the unique things that we found when we went to DeForest and looked at their schedule is this idea of a PD45. So as a scheduling team, one of the things we were asked to investigate was the possibility of a late start for elementary students so that we too could have that time as a district grade level to do more meeting and collaborating. And at the middle school and high school level, they have the luxury of being in the same building, whereas at the elementary level, we have that unique situation where we have multiple buildings worth of teachers that we need to bring together. So out of our research with DeForest came this idea of PD45. So it's kind of falsely creating a late start situation without actually having the kids come late and having parents have to deal with that logistics of where do I send my kids or how do I make this work. And so the way it will work is that the encore teachers, the 3 special area teachers, will do some additional supplemental and extension work within their expertise level, and they will meet with, each one of them would meet with a, let's take first grade for an example. They would, PE would meet with one first grade, art would meet with another first grade, and music would meet with the third first grade, so that those teachers, those classroom teachers, would then have the opportunity to kind of meet at an earlier time and then continue that meeting through that first 45 minutes of the day. So there are no special classes being taught at that time. That's when the specialists have some opportunities, the encore teachers have some opportunities to do some collaborating and then also do these extension activities that would free up the classroom teachers to do that additional collaborating. So for most classrooms on a given day, they would follow their normal schedule, but 9 times across the year, 3 times each trimester, those grade levels would have the opportunity to meet for an extended period of time. So twice a year, that would be meeting with the grade level teachers from the other building for an extended period of time. And then that third time would be a data meeting where we would get a chance to periodically review data currently in our current schedule. That's is happening, but it requires teachers to have subs during that time, for special ed teachers to have subs during that time, and there's a lot of additional expenditure with needing those subs to come into the building to be able to provide this opportunity for teachers. So for most classrooms on most days, it's generally the exact same schedule that you'll hear about in a little bit, but 9 times out of the year, they would follow kind of this alternate abbreviated schedule. So things would kind of get compacted or moved around a little bit. The core curriculum, that reading, writing, math, that would generally be the same, and those minutes would be kind of held steady, and it would be the additional supplemental things around that might be adjusted a little bit on these 9 days throughout the course of the year.
as we presented a couple weeks ago, we wanted to show you what this would look like in the framework of a student, teachers, and parents.
All right, so this is an example of my weekly schedule. And it leaves a lot to be desired. So we have 3 first grade classrooms at GES, and the way my schedule worked out in comparison to those of my colleagues, I don't have very much consistency, as you can see. The other 2 teachers have, their PE and their music classes are generally back to back, and trying to incorporate a 3rd classroom kind of threw that out the window for one of us, and it coincidentally was me. And it was me last year as the 3rd kindergarten teacher. So yeah, low man on the totem pole, I guess. But what you see is problematic for students in that there is no consistency. And the morning looks great, but once you get to the encore classes or the specials classes, it's out the window. And for young students, consistency makes a huge difference in their lives, and knowing what is at each time of the day and what's going to be coming next, again, is really difficult when your schedule is all over the place. One of the things that I have struggled with my students, I looped with them last year, from last year to this year, and we're still working on transitioning. But what gets lost is, and this looks not too terrible, but what gets lost is the amount of instructional time that each transition to a specials takes. So when you see lunch and recess, okay, well in winter, there's a good amount of time that gets lost with having to get undressed with all their winter gear, getting all that put away. So then on Tuesdays and Fridays, that class right after shrinks. So the science on Tuesday, the math on Friday, that time shrinks. And then coming back on Fridays, you'll see that we had to break up our math block to get it in. And that's another place where my students, they struggle with that, because it's not so easy to say, hey, let's work on this for 15 minutes, go to gym class, have a great time, now come back and let's do it again, and now we need to go to art. And especially having art butt up against the end of the day, some of that time that's dedicated to that second math block on Fridays gets taken up because art literally goes till we leave. So there's just an immense amount of time that gets lost throughout the school day and the course of the school year, having such an inconsistent, unpredictable schedule. And I have a handful of kids who really need that predictability, and this type of schedule really makes afternoons incredibly difficult for them.
And I would add with that it's not just a one person, one class situation. This is pretty typical for all classes in all the elementary schools that are kind of chopped up like that. And I also would add that students really do thrive on that consistency and that predictability. It takes a leveling of anxiety out of that for the kids. So I'm looking forward to having that fixed. I think that'll be a really good thing for kids.
So you take the screen you just saw and compare it to this one, which I would say looks a lot nicer. You can see that pretty much everything is going to match up throughout the course of the day. And where the students had that unpredictability, that's gone. The worrying about what's coming next, how much time is going to be lost with transitions, there's one. And the nice thing that I personally I'm looking forward to is being able to have all of my classes at the same time each day. I think it's going to give the students a greater opportunity for academic consistency, not just social or behavioral consistency, but it's going to give them just a little bit greater insight into, okay, this is what we're doing, this is when we're doing it. So I can't emphasize enough how much I personally am looking forward to having something that is in line with the rest of my colleagues. And then you can see here's an example of a typical Monday with myself and then the 2 other teachers at GES. So again, we have a lot of time built in, up until lunch, where we can collaborate, we can exchange students, but that kind of falls apart in the afternoon, and it just makes it very difficult for me to meet with the other 2 teachers outside of meeting before school or after school. So where I have 30 minutes common planning time with Mrs. Lennon and Miss Sauerland, they've got 2 hours a week where they can meet together, they can discuss what's working in the classroom, what's not, where we get 30 minutes. And it was something that I struggled with last year because, like I said, it was the same situation for me then. And there's a lot of research that indicates the importance of teachers working together. Are my numbers right, Mrs. Noel? 1.47?
Yeah, I think that's right.
1.47. So effect size on collective efficacy between staff members, and as it is somehow calculated out, 0.4 equals a potential year's growth. So, that looks at, okay, this is a pretty significant thing that, really can impact student learning. And moving to a schedule like this next year will give us a lot of time together. Just taking out the PD 45, we will have a significantly greater amount of time together. But then incorporating the PD 45 gives us even greater opportunities. And I think another thing that gets lost is if I wanted to switch students for science, that's not possible right now, or social studies, or word work. If it's not reading, writing, or math, those kind of get chunked out into pretty clean times, but those other things fall out. And I know I was working with Mrs. Lennon to have a student switch for social studies in the afternoons, but when it works for her, it doesn't work for us because our schedules are so inconsistent. So it really diminishes what we can do classroom to classroom, exchanging students and really trying to figure out what's going to give them the best opportunity to learn.
I'm really excited about the possibilities of that big block of time, being able to work with other teachers consistently every day of the week, to be able to have that time and be able to touch base with them regularly, and to be able to use that to really help the kids. I think it really opens a lot of possibilities for ways we can help kids and really do things in a really timely way too.
Okay, so I'm here to talk about the parent schedule. I think personally the parents if you put the students at the top, then the teachers and the parents as far as how important this schedule is. But as you can see, our current schedule, there is predictability to it. We do have the same specials, we call them now Encore, every single day. However, every so often, including this Friday, we don't have school, so they have to throw in that Friday special schedule, and it kind of just throws the week off. And I know it throws the week off for my kids, it throws the week off for the teachers. So this isn't like a perfect fit. But when we move on to the next slide, I will say I was the first person to say, oh wait, library day is always Tuesday. Like, what am I going to do? I have a little alarm. My kids know when it goes off at 7:30 on Tuesdays that they have to go get their library book. So I was concerned about this. I was. But communication is going to be key with this. The teachers and the principal are going to put together a monthly calendar to parents. And so, for instance, let's say we get to April 12th and we have a snow day in April. And, what's going to have to happen is that calendar is going to be revised, and then they'll have to send it out again. And then if all else fails, you can always say I can always say to Jacob, what did you have yesterday? Because they're always going to consecutively follow each other. So if he had music yesterday and he doesn't, I don't know if he needs his library book or if he needs to make sure his gym shoes or he's dressed appropriately. I just need to ask him, what did you have yesterday? We know it's always music, gym, art, music, gym, art, music, gym, art. So it is going to be possible to make this work, and I'm really excited because first and foremost, it's the kids. I want my kids need structure, they need routine, and being able to know what's happening next is going to really help them, I think.
I'm here to talk a little bit more of the concrete numbers of what this will look like through the different Encore teachers. I teach Phi-Ed, physical education, at Woodview. Looking at, the years, and you go look at art, music, and Phi-Ed, 3 different years, and there's 3 different, amounts of times for grades, K-5 all the way up to 5th grade, which again, kind of to talk about what Chris said, consistency. There's not consistency, 5K to 5th grade. There's not consistency year to year. Until you get to, sorry.
Is it you?
Yeah, that was me.
That's what my library alarm is.
So you're just connecting it right now. So until you get to the 18-19 school year where you start to see art, music, and Phi-Ed all have the same minutes, which is awesome. Looking down at the bottom block, 45-minute blocks on a rotational schedule provides all overall fewer startups and endings, giving us more usable instructional time. Speaking from experience, there's a startup and an ending to my class in a 30-minute block, and there's kind of a waterfall. If I get a class from music and something happened in the hallway, that time trickles down to my overall time with the students. In this current schedule that we came up with, I'm giving my kids to the classroom teacher, I'm receiving my kids from the classroom teacher, so there's really no time lost, from other teachers potentially not getting their kids to me on time. Also, we calculated out in previous years there were 105 overall transitioned. In the upcoming year there'll be 59 under the current schedule, which allows for a ton more instructional time. Looking at the PD 45, opportunities can increase Encore minutes. So the 2655 is kind of the baseline. When you get to the PD 45 and the on cycle, those minutes increase greatly. And this is kind of just what I thought of during, upcoming to this point. You talk about all the kids, in Grafton High School and all the different enrichment opportunities they have. This PD 45 kind of can be my way of introducing enrichment to elementary kids. I mean, we were talking getting like health more involved in PD 45 and really kind of pushing that enrichment on the kids and starting that, different enrichment opportunities at a younger age. So I really like that. I think it'll be great for the kids. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention library. So the library you saw a little bit connected to the regular Encore classes. So library class would happen once every 6 days. So it would happen on a rotating 6-day schedule. And so at first it sounds like you'll be getting less library because right now we, in theory, only get library every 5 days. But with the number of weeks that we have for holidays or PD days, we really don't have a typical 5-day week every week. So they would actually be getting library minutes pretty consistently. And much more consistently, so we wouldn't really have a loss we don't have the minutes fully calculated, but we wouldn't have a significant loss in library minutes either.
So these are, what the actual minutes will look like for an on-cycle and your typical off-cycle. So the classroom teacher is kind of laid out on the top 2 numbers. On-cycle is 1555, off-cycle is 1600. For an Encore teacher like me, an on-cycle will look like 1575, off-cycle on 1350. And basically since I got to Grafton, I've been kind of pulling for minutes every year to make my minute total look equal to classroom teachers. Really looking at this schedule, I don't need to there's equality throughout teachers for numbers, so that's a huge bonus. Questions?
How do you, when you have the bubble classes, 4 classes, how will that work when you have the 3 sections?
So when we actually went to a visit to the forest, we experienced that. We saw bubble units. And what they had done and what they suggested is that 4th class, for example, would be split apart, continuing to focus on professional learning communities and that common planning time, that one of the 4 classes would be divided into 3 parts and be divided among those art, music, and Phi Ed. For example, if we have 4 first grade classrooms of 21 kids, the one classroom is divided into 7, and we have 28 in art, 28 in music, and 28 in PE. And that would still allow for all 4 teachers then to have a common planning block and still maintain 3 specialist classes.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. We're not looking for a motion or change. I think it was just information tonight, so this was great. A lot of great information. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Our next presentation is on social emotional support services, and Mary Pat, you have not met Mary Pat unless you've been in the office. She is our interim director and has joined us and has been doing a great job. And so she has the team here, and now they'll be presenting on our social emotional support and some of those things that are going on in that area.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. And thank you to the members of the board for allowing me to come and meet all of you, but also to really kind of brag about the Pupil Services team. I've been very impressed. I've only been here since the first part of January, and I'm very impressed by the quality of services that our Pupil Services team gives to our students. Clearly, it's not just the Pupil Services staff. We really have fabulous teachers, special education teachers, our administrators. We all really try to come together so well to meet all the needs of the students. But tonight's our opportunity to brag a little bit about Pupil Services. But I'd first like to take a moment and introduce everyone, because I'm not sure if you know everyone that's here. First of all, we won't all be talking. I've picked on a couple to actually give the presentation tonight. So first is Julie McGivern. She's a school psychologist at the elementary level. And then we have Greg Johnson, who's a counselor from the high school. We have Julie Laurie, who's one of our school psychologists typically at the middle and high school. Next is Bonnie Brady, who's a counselor at our middle school. Next is Sheila Binder, who is a school psychologist at the elementary level. And we have Allie Newmeyer, who's a school psychologist at the elementary level, and the tall one in the back is Rosalind Isbell. She's a counselor here at the high school. So today we're going to really talk to you about services that are provided. We have lots and lots and lots, and if you look at the presentation, you'll see there's a link to a Google Doc that really lists everything. So we're going to try and just do some highlights for you. So that you can really have a confident sense of what kinds of services we offer to our students to really help them be socially and emotionally well connected to our schools. You saw those high school students tonight. It was really fabulous to see them all come and get incredible awards. And I know that's just one meeting, one time throughout the year, and you have many, many more. But it's really fun to see the students and see what kinds of young adults they're becoming as they're getting ready for the world of work. So I'm going to turn it over to Julie. She's going to start our presentation, and I'm going to pretend to know what's happening here.
Okay, first of all, I do want to thank Mary Pat too for stepping in at the end of the year here, and you just nailed everybody's names. It was impressive. She's really done a lot and really been a great leader for us, so I do want to thank her. And thank you guys for inviting us to come. This is only my second year in Grafton, so for me this is an area that I feel really passionate about, student wellness, and so this is a really nice opportunity for me to come meet some of you, although I've met some of you as parents and on committees and things like that. So first, we're going to talk about support systems we have in place at the consistently K-12, but realize that also my lens is more elementary, so I will talk about what we're doing at other levels, but know that my lens probably is skewed a little bit more toward the elementary level. So the first thing we're going to talk about is positive behavior intervention supports, which is PBIS, and many of you may have heard of that, and that's really our underlying framework that we use at all levels to focus on positive behavior. So when we're talking about positive behaviors, we want to teach students what we want them to do versus what we don't want them to do. So The premise is that we are specifically going into classrooms, that teachers have very clear expectations of what we want the students to do, and then we acknowledge those behaviors when we see them. So we have behaviors that we see in the classroom, hallways, playground, the cafeteria, all the different environments, and that those are where the behaviors that we teach. So each area has a different matrix. So, for example, at the elementary level, we have different expectations under being responsible, being respectful, being safe, and being ready to learn, and that's how we frame those behaviors. We teach the behaviors specifically and directly, and that provides us with consistent language for all staff members to use. So there's not one teacher saying one thing and me saying another thing. We have volume levels that we use in the hallways just to keep us all on the same page. And again, really focusing on positive behaviors. And then we celebrate those behaviors as a whole school. So once we reach a goal, sometimes we set, like I think we have right now 5,000 Kenny Kudos goals at Kennedy. So once we reach that, we celebrate together, and that includes everybody, regardless of what might happen along the way. It's everybody coming together and celebrating all of the positive things that we've done. PBIS is a tiered system of support, so similar to academics, we talk about that universal level, and that's what I'm talking about. We teach those behaviors. So we have the tier 1, where we're looking just at everyone globally. How is everyone doing? How are we doing in different environments? And then we collect data based on how we're doing. So we call them majors and minors, and those are, I'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about misbehavior. But we collect the major and minor data, and then we look at those as our tier 1 team and say, are there areas that we need to work on? Are we having a lot of difficulty out on the playground? Are we having a lot of difficulty in the cafeteria? And do we need to reteach those expectations? So that might come from the teachers, that might come from the principal or myself, where we go in and do some lessons and some refreshers with specific groups of students or with the whole school. We also do whole school assemblies to focus on those behavioral expectations as well. We are also in the process of being trained at tier 2. So Woodview and GS did the tier 2 training last year, and this year Kennedy and John Long are going through the training. So by next year, all 4 of those buildings will be, well, now we'll be down to 2 elementaries, but we will all be trained at that tier 2 level. So we are just starting implementation, and at tier 2 is where we're looking at more specific groups of kids that may be struggling and really need to feel connected to the building. And again, it's really a focus on the positive behaviors and making kids feel that they belong in school. So really trying to build that wellness and the hopes that if kids feel connected and we're focusing on the positive, that those misbehaviors will decrease. Okay, so another thing that we do is collaboration. Collaboration is such a huge part of our job, and we are informally collaborating with teachers and other staff members throughout the day, all day, every day. But we do have some more specific structures in place to help us make sure that we are talking about kids that we have concerns about. So 3 times per year, we have what we call the instructional support teams, and that's where we're reviewing all of our academic data. We look at behavioral data, we look at any social concerns, and that includes principals, special ed teachers, psychologists, counselors, instructional coaches, and the classroom teachers. And I'm liking the new schedule as we're talking about that, because it does take a huge chunk of time where we're getting subs. So next year it sounds like that's going to be built in, which is going to be great for kids and great for us as staff members to collaborate even more frequently. So I'm happy to hear that. But we do that 3 times per year, and then from there we might have students where we have more action steps that we need to address if their social emotional needs are of concern in the classroom or in other areas in the school. Then we also have what we call student support teams at the elementary level, and they call them student of concern meetings at the secondary level. Within those, that if we have students that continually are coming up, maybe at a weekly team meeting or in the IST meeting, or they're flagging on our behavioral data that we're collecting, then we say, you know what, I think we need to spend a little more time talking about an action plan for this student. So then it would be whoever needs to be around the table. It could be a special ed teacher, myself, principal, classroom teacher, possibly an instructional coach, depending on the needs of that student. So that's where we would get together, talk about specific concerns, do some goal setting, and develop intervention plans that we can follow to see if the student is needing any additional supports.
So trying different strategies, really problem solving. Everything we do is so team-based and working together, because just in isolation, one of us isn't going to be the one person. So team is really important for us. We also, I think I talked about the weekly team meetings. That's especially important at the secondary level where they don't have the SST meetings as frequently. But I try to attend. I do work at John Long as well for 6th grade, so I try to get to those team meetings as frequently as I can, because that's where we talk about students that might be flagging as concerns, or that teachers are seeing patterns of behavior or mental health issues that we feel like we need to address. So those occur on a weekly basis at the secondary level, and would include teachers. It might be also the department at the high school level. We would try to attend those and talk about students and their needs and any action steps that we would need to take from there. So all of these opportunities to talk about student needs come up on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, and we do as much as we can to try to problem solve, so we're preventing those behaviors from continuing to occur and really trying to focus on the positive. We also do a lot of collaboration with the school and community resources. I think one of the things that we've realized now is that just one organization alone doesn't really support mental health in the way that we need it. We're seeing an increase in stress and anxiety, and so I think if we as collectively, as a district, as a community, as parents and teachers all come together and collaborate, that's going to make a significant difference. So one of the areas, or one of the agencies we work closely with is Ozaki Family Services. They offer a lot of services to families in our area. Specifically, they have a coordinated services team program. So schools can refer families if we know they are working with a psychiatrist and their pediatrician and a therapist, and we want everybody to come around the table together. We can make a referral to them, and they will contact the family, and then we meet on a monthly basis, usually in the school setting, with all the providers and teachers and everybody around the table to talk about what the family needs, what the student needs, and really work on, it's really strength-based, and how can we build on the strengths of that family. Ozaki Family Services also offers many parent workshops, student groups, and at times, if there's a need at the middle school level, they do come in and do groups within the school setting as well. So teaming with them has been really beneficial, and it's a strong connection for our district. Red Gen is another agency that we've worked closely with, and I worked a lot with in my previous district. They have a lot of different supports they have in place for parents, students, and then also the schools. So I try to attend the school groups meetings when I'm able to get there. They meet at Marquette. And it's nice to be able to collaborate with other districts to find out what they're doing to meet the needs of students. And then they also offer many speakers. We've had a couple people come in. Justin Patchen came in the fall, and that was supported by Red Gen. They also have a lot of really free resources that are nice to be able to provide to our teachers. So I try to get that information out when I can, and I think it is in our Grafton news as well. So I think we have a link of all their different events that they have throughout Southeast Wisconsin. So they've really done a lot in the area of mental health and just student wellness in general. Recently we met with Ozaki Human Services, specifically Child Protective Services and their crisis worker. Our mental health team met with them just to get a little bit more information about what services they can provide for our families. And we are forced to sometimes make CPS phone calls to Child Protective Services because we're mandated reporters and things happen, and we want to team with them as much as we can to find out what do they do to support families, because sometimes we make phone calls and we don't know what happens after we make that phone call, and they're the families and kids that we're with every day. So trying to spend more time kind of proactively working with them to see what services we can provide, and we did really learn a lot just about walk-in services that they have if there's a student that is in crisis, and that families can go right there. It was something that I wasn't aware of in Ozaki County. Rogers Memorial Hospital is another agency that we're trying to collaborate more closely with. We have students that sometimes go there to receive mental health services, and when they transition back, that can be really tricky and really difficult for us if we're not all on the same page, and if they're using strategies that work for that student, we want to make sure that when they do transition back, we're utilizing those same types of strategies and supports. So we have a visit scheduled with them when we return from spring break. Again, just to meet so we can all collaborate, be on the same page, utilize any services and supports that they are offering students, and continuing those when students return to us. And just generally, we collaborate a lot with outside therapists and pediatricians, psychiatrists, anyone that is supporting the kids that are coming to us every day and needing to know, what strategies they might be working on so we can consistently do those same things. Individual small group support and classroom curriculum, that's really a big one too. We're seeing students individually all the time depending on what their needs are. We sometimes see them for 6 weeks at a time to help them through, it could be through a tough patch if their parents are getting divorced or something like that, where we're working through anxiety or things that they might be dealing with. We also might meet with individuals who are in a crisis situation. At the elementary level, sometimes it's smaller problems than at the secondary level, where someone's cat died or something and they come to school and they're crying, and that's something that we would help them work through. At the secondary level, they're probably dealing with some more significant things than that. So we do crisis response, we do individual counseling on a short-term basis, especially if it's things that are impacting their performance at school and how they're functioning. We do some small group support. It varies year to year on the needs of the students. A lot of times those will come out of those instructional support team meetings or student support team meetings where we decide, there's several students that are struggling with this same social skill. Let's try to get a small group together maybe during their I time and focus on this for 6 weeks and see if that makes a difference. So really trying to support them that way. And then classroom curriculum, the social emotional learning piece is something that's being talked about a lot more. We are fortunate here at the elementary level, especially because we have second step in place. The classroom teachers are administering that during their social studies time on a weekly basis. And those lessons have been really helpful because they do provide that consistent language. And our classroom teachers are the ones implementing that at this time, because there's research that shows that if it's embedded into what they're doing on a daily basis and into their classroom, and the teachers are using the language and the kids are hearing the language, that it is more effective. So Second Step is a great program. We really try to tie it in with our PBIS and using some of that same language on our monthly themes and just areas that we're focusing on in certain skills. At the secondary level, we have our counselors that go into the classrooms and do different lessons on also social skills, the internet safety, those pieces, and sometimes they have guest speakers that come in to do those lessons as well. It happens periodically throughout the year, and I think they use the health curriculum also kind of as an avenue to do some of that social emotional learning. We put the internet safety kind of as a separate piece of the social emotional learning because there's a lot of conversation about social media and what kids are doing, and they have access to many things. So we wanted to talk a little bit about that. We do team with Ozaki Family Services. They come in and do some lessons to really specific grade levels at the middle school level, and they have done that in the past at elementary levels. We are working, the school psychologists at the elementary level are now working with Jen Griffith, who was here, I think she's gone, but working with her through Common Sense Media, which is another curriculum that would be more consistent through every grade level and that we could do throughout the year, teaming with our library media specialist. So I think our kids would get more consistent than just in second grade and fourth grade, someone coming in once a year. So we're feeling really excited about that because it really talks about digital citizenship and that continuum and developmentally appropriate from kindergarten through grade 5. And that may continue on as we kind of get that solidified at the elementary level. We've had speakers come in as well, and I think those things are all listed in that document. We probably don't need to spend a lot of time on that, but there's a more descriptive list of each level, things that are being done at each level that you guys can look at if you want to go into more detail. All right, this slide talks about responses to misbehaviors. So this can be a little tricky the way it's worded because sometimes we are involved with misbehavior. We are involved especially in the crisis situations, but we aren't necessarily the ones that would be giving the consequences. We team with our principals and administrators on that. But I talked about the major and minor infractions before. That's how we document behaviors that are happening. And a major behavior would be something more significant if, say, a physical altercation or something like that. Majors are handled by the office and they go directly to the principal. And minor infractions are, it might be a student was talking out of turn multiple times in class and the teacher had to give them several reminders and they didn't stop. That would be a minor behavior. And those are handled within the classroom. The consequences that we would give to students really does depend on so many factors. We want them to be age appropriate, so a consequence for a kindergartner might look different than a consequence that we would give to a 10th grader. It also is going to be responsive to what the offense was, the significance, the severity of it, and talking about progressive discipline. So was it their first offense? Is this a repeated offense? Has this been going on multiple times? So we want to take all those things into consideration, and we really do take the team approach. Again, our principals are mostly the ones that are doing the actual disciplining, where we might be doing more problem solving, conflict resolution. How are we, like, why is this behavior occurring? So we're really trying to do that piece of it of how can we keep this behavior from occurring again, and problem solving around that. So, you know, we want students to feel comfortable coming to us, and if it is a conflict with another student, oftentimes we are problem solving through that, or meeting with parents and part of that. But I do think the administrators generally are the ones that would be administering consequences. But there are so many factors that go into that, that's why I feel like as the counselors and the psychologists, we really are trying to focus on those positive behaviors and the expectations that we have for students. I think that's the gist of that. Just wanting to note that, you know, when we do see behaviors that are repeated, again, we're meeting as a team, and the parent communication, when it comes to parent communication about specific incidents, it does vary depending on the severity of it. Again, if it's the principal that's communicating about it or the classroom teacher that's communicating about it. So if we do need further, you know, if there needs to be further communication, then that's usually where it would come from.
Greg's going to take the next.
I will. Thank you, Julie. Just so you know, Julie had the lion's share of it, so I got the easy part here. So thank you, Julie, for doing that. My name is Greg Johnson. I'm new to Grafton High School this year, but I do come with about 24 years of experience as a school counselor, and I'm super excited to be here. So thank you for allowing us this opportunity. So up on the screen, the items listed there are show a few professional development topics which have occurred at various buildings and throughout the LBC professional development provided by Diana and her team. And also a lot of our staff have had opportunities to gain more knowledge in these areas. One of our goals as a pupil services team is to have trainings consistent though, and Julie referenced that, so consistent throughout the district. And obviously this is more necessary now that we are restructuring the elementary schools. Our team is also looking for ways for total student engagement, which we listed on one of the last bullet points there. Research has shown that students who have a connection with others at school, like teachers, administrators, counselors, psychologists, support staff, and even peers, tend to perform better academically and have a more positive self-concept. So one example that at the high school level we're continuing the connectedness project. Basically where the staff will get a list of all the students in the school and they will identify students that they feel they have a good relationship with. And then I believe it's new to this year, we're going to ask the students who do they feel they have a positive relationship with in the building. So to me that's even more crucial to find out. We might think we have a good relationship, but they might not think the same. So so that's a project, and then what we do with that data or with that information is then we as a staff will make a concerted effort of reaching out to students who don't feel they are connected and so forth. So that's one piece. So on this slide, you can see we have 3 bullet points, some more goals, etc. There are many tools constantly being developed out there which measure social and emotional well-being of students. One example I should say is the Devereaux Student Strengths Assessment, and at the elementary, middle school level, or elementary, they're looking at that as one tool that they are looking at. So we're researching other districts, see what they're doing, other districts in the area, with hopes of bringing the best screening tools to use with our students at Grafton. In addition, we're continuing to build our current strategies, the things that we are doing through our professional organizations that we each belong to, our colleagues, and of course colleagues in other districts as well. So it's a research time for the screening tools. All right, communication with parents and the community. So obviously, a very important piece of the whole puzzle here. We as a team feel it's important to highlight some of the methods of communication that we currently have in place. And they include, and you can see some of them up here, student handbooks. You know, every school has a student handbook. This is where student behavior expectations are printed, consequences of behaviors, misbehaviors, and forms of communication, just a wealth of other information. And if you're parents, you've seen those. I don't know if you read them all, but you've seen, you know where they are.
Cover to cover.
Cover to cover, yeah. At the high school, the administration and counselors conduct class meetings at the start of the year just to update students on expectations again, as well as any changes in school rules, school procedures, introduce new staff members, and then, for example, Mr. Manti provides a lot of other pertinent information for students. So those are a few of the things. Oh, and you all should have received a newsletter from the high school counseling department last week. So, it's nothing to do with this, but it's good communication, right? So that's that. So recently a parent section has been added also thanks to Kate on the district's website, so kind of a digital communication. She's added a parenting part to that, so hopefully you've seen that. A lot of the information on there may include, as was mentioned earlier, parenting classes that are occurring in the county, more Red Gen information and all their activities. I think there's a special needs resource fair listed on there right now, and then volunteer opportunities throughout the county. So I think that's a great addition for our communication. New this year, we have a parent liaison role. Daria Alexander is a parent in the district, and she's going to be a parent liaison. Which is a new role, new to me, so I kind of had to research a little bit about it. The primary role of the parent liaison is to empower parents to become active participants in the education of their children. Okay, we're working with a consultant, or the district, I should say, is working with a consultant from CISA 1 to train her, and she's already been through some trainings and trying to define how that role will look here at Grafton. She is planning on sending out a letter to the district parents once we have a new director of pupil services in place. So you can look forward to that coming hopefully soon. The district also sponsors presentations, which we mentioned, or which were mentioned earlier, for parents to help educate them, basically on the various societal issues that are facing our children. So again, during our wellness week at the high school, we had this Dr. Justin Patchen from UW-Eau Claire come and speak about social media use among teens, and we had surprisingly, we were thrilled, I should say, not surprisingly, but a good turnout there at the presentation, and we had parents from all over the North Shore attending as well, so we were very, very happy with that. And then the last slide, you can see working with the schools and families it needs to be a collaborative effort, obviously, which usually begins by having good relationships. So every educator, including us, those relationships and building relationships with students and parents is obviously key, because we encourage parents and students to find a trusted adult in the building that they feel comfortable talking to when needed. Not everyone will go to the counselor, but not everyone's going to go to the principal either to talk about an issue. So as long as they have somebody, to me, that's the key thing. So as mentioned earlier, the pupil services staff often work with outside therapists and hospitals when a student's being treated for issues. This allows us to facilitate a more comfortable environment and transition for the student. Very, very key piece. So again, that communication is huge, and those relationships. So I guess as a pupil services team, our students' social emotional health is a top priority, obviously, for us and all the other educators in the building. And we're continuing to learn how can we better meet their needs, which, as we know, are always changing. And as we know, the mental health issues is rising as well. So we, as a team, encourage students and parents to communicate with us so we can work together to help them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Greg.
There we go.
So. Any questions that you would have of the team? That's why I made the whole team come. If you have any questions?
The survey that you will be sending out to get the feedback as far as who they're connected with, how often will that occur?
That's really a high school
The connectedness project. Roslyn, before I speak to what we did last year.
Well, last year was the first year that we did do this connected activity. What we did was just surveying our teachers, and then this year we're adding that step of also surveying our students. And I think it's something that we would like to do every year to see how we're seeing growth too, that more students are feeling more connected with a trusted adult. And last year, once we did get the information, we looked at the students who didn't have a connection, and staff volunteered to kind of reach out to those students, and we found that to be very effective. And so that's kind of our first step, and we want to continue with this.
That seems, okay. I like the addition that you have down for the parents, Kate, that you put on the website. That's nice. There's Red Gen, a few other things, and I noticed there wasn't one with Starting Point. So I think that's a great addition that we can look at. I was also looking at, when we were talking about the elementary schools, I think, Jen, you were talking about how a lot of the coordination that you're doing with families, and there seems to be a lot of different services and a lot of case management type things. How do you manage all that in just at one given day and a week? I can imagine that's really, you're pulled in many different directions.
I'm never bored. Which I love. It's something I love about my job. I'm never bored.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a challenge. Absolutely. I think having strong team members makes it more manageable. Being able to, call any of these people on a daily basis and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or I need help with this. Being able to support one another, my principals, being able to talk to them. I think as long as we're all functioning together as a team, it makes it manageable, but absolutely days are challenging. There are days you go home and you're like, oh my gosh, what just happened, But I don't know if you guys want to add to that.
I was going to say, you really just reprioritize. If there's a crisis, that becomes your new number one.
Right, like what else goes to that?
Communicate to teachers and parents where you may have to reschedule the students that you see on a more consistent basis, and you just meet those students' needs.
I know the staff really relies on parent communication too, to keep us posted as to things that are coming up. I mean, obviously your children really respond differently at home than they do at school. So things might come up at home that don't come up at school, or vice versa. So that communication between the families and the school staff is really important to all of us, to make sure that if there are issues, that we have the sweet little student that folds his or her hands and doesn't say anything, but at home is falling apart. We need to know about that. So we really do rely on parents to keep us posted as to things that are happening so we can help out too.
Is there any outreach that you have where staff maybe needs to connect with the families outside of the school if they won't come in? Do you actually go out? I know some social workers would do that, but how does this work in a school setting?
We have and will, yeah.
And I know sometimes I'll find out of a family that they're in a crisis of some, just, a student has mentioned something that has happened in their family. I'm at the point in my career where I'm just going to call them up. And I'm sure most of us would feel the same way. You just making that, reaching out, because sometimes they are reluctant to share and maybe a little uncomfortable. And if they choose not to share much on the telephone, that's totally fine. But I want them to know that there is a caring person out there, and if they need something, if we can make the situation better, even though maybe not a school-related issue, just someone to listen to their concerns or help them navigate other places to go for those answers. That's important too.
Any other questions?
Do you have another one?
Well, I guess the offering that we have and all of the things that you presented are absolutely commendable. And I can't even imagine the things that you deal with every day. One of the questions I would have is, do you see any gaps in our offering? Are you lacking something? I mean, whether it's people, whether it's equipment, whether it's policy, whether it's, what might that be, and how might we be able to support you in filling those gaps?
Is it okay to say it? I'm a counselor, so I'm going to advocate for counselors. In our district, we're lacking in that area. Ratio is
way over what it should be. So I guess that's my point.
I do think having, it has been a tricky year, not, having inconsistent leadership of our department, not that Jeff and Diana and our principals haven't been great and tried to support us. But it has been challenging because we are trying to pick up some additional things, and we didn't really talk about the special education piece that we also are taking on. So I guess I would say making it a priority for the new person that you hire, that it's a strength or something that they feel passionate about, I feel like would help us to have that leadership going forward. And I mean, like I said, I can't thank Mary Pat enough for coming in and saying, all right, this is what we're doing. And really, I mean, she's done a lot in the time that she's been here, but she also can only be here 3 days a week, and she's retired. So having, I think, strongly, I know, right? She's not very good at it. So I think just having, having a strong leader of our team leadership is a huge component, and I think I mentioned, I'm grateful that you guys asked us to come, because I think, knowing it's a priority for our district is only going to help us be able to identify what we need. And next year is going to be interesting. We're combining 2 schools. There's going to be challenges, I think, that we don't even know what they're going to be yet. So it's going to be an ongoing conversation, and whoever does step into that role, it's a hard job. It's a hard role. You're dealing with a lot of difficult situations. So that's my viewpoint.
I was going to say, I've been keeping some data this year, and I want to see what it looks like next year when the building grows. It's definitely going to be unique being at a building with over 500 students. So I'm optimistic and hopeful. And I'll be working with my team greatly to meet those needs.
I'll be interested to see how the new schedule also impacts even for me to have time to talk to the principals about something that happens. Sometimes, it's phone calls later at night or texting like, hey, didn't you know this happened? Or, just trying to keep on top of things. I mean, it certainly has its challenges.
And obviously I'm new here, but the addition of the Dean of Students role at the high school has been huge. I could not imagine working in a building this size with just one assistant principal or other administrators. So I think thank you, that really helps.
And I think that would be great for the other schools, maybe something for us to think about, to provide more support with given the mental health needs. Now, so many more students, and there's just so much of that at such a young age. That's something maybe we could think about providing support.
We've had that discussion at leadership team, and it will be interesting to see as we move to 2 elementary schools where right now we share school psychs across buildings, so there's some movement that goes with that. How will that flesh out as we have a school psych at each building? What does that look like? It's hard to make a decision saying we need more when we don't know what that looks like yet, and not having someone in place as the leader of that department also makes it more difficult, but that has been a discussion that we've had at leadership team of the needs that we have, and we'll be watching that closely.
Speaking of data, have you noticed a trend at all I know Mr. Deering had reported that minors were down at the middle school. Have you noticed trends overall this year on majors and minors?
Things are going up from what I've seen at my PGIS meetings, but there's also a lot of variables. We're under construction,
Right.
so our playground, we don't have swings. We're all, there's a lot of different, reasons for why that might be the case, and so it'll be good to sort that out.
I can speak to our building too. At the end of last year is when we first started collecting minor data, so it's still a new thing. So I do think we're still seeing some increases. I don't know. I don't know if I can speak to the majors though. I don't think we haven't seen an increase in those, but minors we're just still trying to get people to submit the minors so we can track that data and look at it more.
That's what I was going to say. In my previous district, we had done majors and minors for several years, but when we first started, there was certainly a really significant increase from year 1 to 2 because the teachers were more consistent about reporting those, and parents were more consistent about, really coming back and being supportive and really wanting to know what was happening. So things didn't go by the wayside. They were really documented, and we collected that data, but it was really helpful to do that. After a couple of years, it kind of levels off. Kind of comes to a point that
I guess I would like to follow up on Bonnie's point with some supporting information on what that ratio normally is and where we're at, just so we can?
I did do a survey of surrounding school districts to look at, particularly at the elementary level, and it's kind of all over the board, to be real honest. And so there are, I think that at this point, our numbers, our ratios look pretty good in comparison to other school districts. There is one school district that has significantly more support. But when you look across other school districts in the area, it looks pretty good. So I think I really agree with Mr. Nelson that I think we're going to have to live it for a little bit and see where are we really falling apart. Is there a certain time of the year? Is there a certain, a certain function that a social worker or a counselor could really help out and maybe split between the two elementary schools, whatever comes down the road. But really the data that I've collected has not shown us to be dramatically different than other school districts in our support.
Can we get that?
We can. Yep, we can share that with you.
And also too, we also have to keep in mind that that's great data, but you have to just consider, the student and what would be best for the students as a whole.
That's why I was saying, I think if we live it a year, that you'll know more in December than you certainly know by having people.
I'd also shout out to Stacia McCulley, who's not a part of this team officially, but I know I collaborate with her a lot around mental health issues, even though maybe that is not her defined role, but I appreciate her very, very much in the district, so that's a definite plus for us.
And I should say, Chris Hanley's not here tonight because he's ill, so he's the other part of the team that isn't here.
I meant to introduce him.
That's okay. Yep. So when you mentioned Stacia, I want to make sure you understand why Chris isn't here. He would have been here otherwise, but that's why he's here.
Okay.
Any questions?
Well, thank you so much. Did you have one more question? No? Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for letting us come and give our presentation. I don't know
Thanks
how
for
to
coming.
turn that
That's
off.
okay. Thank you. No more presentations. Promise. Sorry.
Okay, so we have some committee reports. We'll start with the curriculum committee.
Curriculum committee met on March 12th. We went over elementary math curriculum, and the curriculum committee, which is an agenda item further tonight. The curriculum committee did recommend that we do adapt the Bridges curriculum, but Diana will be presenting on that in a little bit. We went through the elementary schedule update, which we, again, heard a wonderful presentation tonight with lots of parents, and I think we got all of our questions answered. And a brief human growth and development curriculum update that they are still in the early processes of meeting and coming up with that, and we will hear more about that at our next meeting on April 9th, along with further update on iTime on April 9th. That's it.
Okay. Policy, Steve.
Policy also met on March 12th. We had no first readings, and we had one second reading of 342.62 and 342.62 rule that we will be discussing a little bit later tonight in the agenda. The only other thing that we had on the agenda for our March 12th meeting was we brought back the naming policy with the new edition of the private-public. We're trying to really make sure that we can understand and get something at least drafted for that. So we reviewed the current policy. We brought back to the table some of the sample policies. And then the administration also brought what we've had in the past for past sponsorships and what we have for current sponsorships, just so we have a good understanding of that. So the action item that came out of the meeting is that administration will draw up a draft policy for naming for us to have a first reading for in our May meeting. And then our next meeting will be May 14th.
And finance, Paul.
The Finance Committee meeting also met on the 12th and discussed in depth the elements on the agenda tonight, I, J, K, L. I won't go into any of those in great detail, but they were covered extensively at that meeting, so we'll hear about it more as the meeting here tonight progresses. Our next meeting is also May 14th.
Okay. Since most everybody was at all those meetings, I doubt that there's any questions, we'll move on to those other items. G, a personnel report.
Yes, so we regretfully bring forward 2 resignations. Both Amy Anderson and Molly Lucarelli. Amy is had her 3rd child, will be staying home, and Molly's husband has taken a position as a JAG lawyer, and they're waiting to see where she'll be placed. Molly, we are working on to be able to be a long-term sub at the beginning of the year for one of our staff members that will be out on maternity leave, because she isn't leaving, I think, until end of October, November. They aren't really sure yet, but she's going to be able to fill that role. So we would need approval for their resignations, and then also informational. We have the resignation of Lisa Rao, library clerk at Kennedy Elementary School, and the hire in that position is Carrie Slominski, library clerk at Kennedy Elementary School.
Is a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Any questions for Mr. Nelson? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And it passes. Okay, we move on to our Stonewall Reserve discussion.
Yes, so I included a memo in the packet that updates the board on the status of the Colway Farm property, now being referred to as the Stonewall Reserve subdivision. It is set to be on the agenda for the village board for annexation and residential development of that property. It's currently in the town of Cedarburg and currently in the Cedarburg School District, but even being annexed by the Grafton Village Board, it would not become part of our school district. It would stay as part of the Cedarburg School District. We talked at the last meeting a little bit about what our options would potentially be, and we do have a process that we could follow where we would pass a resolution attaching the property to our district and detaching it from the Cedarburg School District. Now, this would also, to take effect, have to be a resolution that is also passed by the Cedarburg School District, their board as well. And as part of this process, the owners and electors of that property are invited here tonight to speak on that. And, you referenced that this would be a chance for anyone to come and speak on that right now after this presentation, and then I believe we could discuss afterwards once we hear that.
Have you completed your presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anyone here that wants to speak to this topic tonight? All right. Simplifies that. Then we are free to discuss it.
Yes.
There's not much to discuss. I mean, are you looking for a motion tonight to move it forward, or just indicating that you have moved it forward and we're going to send it?
Tonight you'll be potentially making the choice to pass the resolution for attachment and detachment.
Okay. So we've talked about this before. It's pretty much a foregone conclusion. We can ask, they can say yes or no, and that's kind of where we're at, is we're going to ask part of this equation. Does anyone have any questions about that or input?
Have we reached out at all to them?
I have talked with their board president, just indicating that this was, I didn't want them to be blindsided that when it showed up the first time in the newspaper, but I haven't had any indication of what their thoughts are on it. Okay, so then we're looking for a motion to move forward and make the request.
So moved.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. You guys move that forward. Do you know anything about the timing? Is there a statutory limitations on the response or our request?
I'm not aware of that, but if it occurs after March, so for example, let's say the Cedarburg took this up in April, then the attachment and detachment will occur July 1 of 2019. But otherwise, I'm not aware of a timing per se that I could reach out to. Yes.
Okay.
What's the time frame on the development actually getting started?
Well, it's probably far enough out in that, when you look at some of the effects with this legislation, with this, with transferring debt and assets and liabilities, there's very little property value currently on the farm, so it's not going to have much of an effect. It's not going to have an effect of us, or not us, but say Cedarburg having to lay off staff. There aren't any students necessarily there right now, so time-wise, kind of going to see what Seabrook does.
Could the development happen so fast that they would get families in there before this deadline? I think that's remarkable.
Yeah, I think that's unlikely.
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, it still hasn't even been annexed yet by the village, or they haven't approved any of the rezoning that would allow the property to take place. The owners are still the Kohler Family Trust, so that deal hasn't even taken place for the developer to even own the land at this time.
Okay. Okay, so did we vote, Kara? Thank you. School fee discussion, Mr. Nelson. Thanks, Jennifer.
I'll turn it back over to Topher. We discussed this at finance as well.
Yeah, so at the finance committee meeting, we reviewed our school fees and compared them to surrounding districts. And we'll have that up on the display board here. And from that meeting, when we reviewed those fees, we did come forward, the finance committee did recommend some changes to our school fees, and I'll go over them right now. So if you notice our technology user fees, which we have some, surrounding districts do not, one recommendation is to eliminate that fee and to increase the registration fees by $25. This would be a budget neutral piece, and it would really put us in line with what our surrounding, our neighboring districts do with regard to registration fees and technology user fees. And if you go to the next slide, chart, you'll see what that would look like making that shift. There are no technology fees, and our registration fees are in line, similar to our neighbors. Two fees that are really optional activities, parking and athletic participation, are recommended to be increased. First of all, you can see our parking fee right now is $50, which is significantly below surrounding districts and below the average. Our athletic participation fees are also below the average of local districts near us. So it's recommended that parking fees would increase from $50 to $100. Middle school athletic participation fees would increase from $35 to $50, and high school participation fees would increase from $50 to $75. The change in parking fees would result in about $13,000 of additional revenue per year. The change in high school participation fees would result in roughly $17,000 of additional revenue annually. The idea would be to take that $30,000 and apply it towards our capital maintenance plan, which we'll be talking about shortly, which included in that capital maintenance plan is the upkeep of our athletic facilities, as well as the upkeep of our parking lots, or replacement of our parking lots. So those fees and those that are charged on those activities would go to help maintain the facilities that are used by those activities. Are there any questions on those in particular? We also do have an additional piece that we brought forward that was not discussed at the Finance Committee. Those would be the e-fund payments. So I can go through that right now if you prefer. So when parents, families make payments online through our e-funds payment system, there's a cost incurred. And districts have an option. They can either have parents cover that cost, or the district can cover the cost. And we, as a district, have chosen to cover the cost of both payments made that are connected to your checking account, as well as payments made that are connected to a credit card. We budget about $10,000 for those fees annually, so that to cover the cost of those e-funds payments. What we're recommending, what administration is recommending, is that we would still cover the fees related to payments made with a checking account. Again, it's still an electronic payment, but it's just, they've attach their payment to their checking account, so it'll come out of their checking account. However, you would have parents, if they so choose, they would cover the cost of making a credit card payment or a payment that's attached to their credit card account. Doing this would still leave an option for parents that's free. They would not have to pay an additional fee to make that online payment. But because the checking fees are so much lower, we would end up, we would be able to decrease that expenditure budget for those fees from $10,000 to $5,000, saving $5,000 annually in their budget. Now I can take some questions.
So in that scenario, we're giving them one case that it's a free, and one that they pay, so they have a choice.
Correct.
What kind of fee would be attached to a credit card payment? Is it a percentage?
It's 3.2% of the payment plus 20 cents. That's what we pay as a district for any credit card transaction. The checking, the payment, the fee with a checking account payment is 50 cents max. So it's 1%, and then it caps at 50 cents. So if the payment's over $50, it's still going to be a 50-cent charge for us.
Any idea if other districts absorb or?
There are, I can speak to both the district I came from. We did not cover any costs at that district. The districts where my girls attend, that district does not cover any of the costs for parents. My understanding is my predecessor came from a district where those costs were covered. And so people come kind of with their own sort of experience and expectation. But there are some various models out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the implementation of fees for credit card transactions has increased significantly, almost anywhere you go. And those fees are just going up and up by the providers of those cards. So I think this is, so long as we have an option, it certainly makes sense to me.
And if someone were to choose to pay that because they wanted their credit card miles or they wanted those benefits that go with it, then there would be a fee that would be associated. But right now, we take on that fee, which takes money that we would typically be able to use in the classroom, be able to use for student learning, and it goes towards someone being able to get the convenience of a credit card.
And the only thing I would add is, as the Finance Committee is recommending that the full board approve these recommended fee increases.
And we did have a lengthy discussion about fees. This was just a new piece that Joe discovered as we were going through our budget, that he'd found, looking at the discrepancy of that, and we brought that EB to your attention now.
So the full board was at that meeting, so that we sort of exhausted the discussion items at that point. So I don't, if everybody's ready, we can entertain a motion unless somebody wants to suggest something different than what's put out here. Then I would entertain a motion to accept the recommendation from administration.
To accept the administrative recommendation of increasing fees as presented.
Second. Questions or discussion further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And it passes. Thanks, Topher. And you're still on capital maintenance.
So, yes, administration was pleased to bring forward to the Finance Committee 2 weeks ago a 20-year capital maintenance plan, which essentially replaces our 10-year capital maintenance plan. And this is a somewhat unwieldy document in terms of displaying at a board meeting or even printing out on a packet. But it does look very nice on a large, wide screen if you're sitting up close to it. So I'll go through the concept of how this document is laid out and used. It's basically organized by location. You can see here Grafton High School. And each project is listed out at the high school, including cost and the year it's supposed to be completed. Then in addition, at the bottom of the Grafton High School piece you'll see those expenses are categorized by fund. And you'll see that we have Fund 41, which we levy into, Fund 46, which we transfer funds into. That won't be available till July 1st, 2021. We also have some money you can see here at the Grafton High School in Fund 10. That happens as you get to the end of a budget year and realize that utility costs or maintenance costs may have come below budget, and you have additional funds to tackle projects, maybe ahead of schedule, or to relieve the other funds from having to incur that cost, thus leaving a balance in there. We take this information for each site, and all the way on the bottom of the spreadsheet, it's summarized by year, the revenues and expenditures, so that they can be tracked over the 20 years going forward to see where there might be a shortfall. And so, for example, we had been projecting a shortfall in 2020-21 of about $46,000. Now, we will be able to avoid this shortfall, and this is a living, breathing document. It's already essentially changed just minutes ago with the approval of the fees. We'll be able to avoid that shortfall by levying that additional $30,000 into Fund 41, leading up to Fund 46 coming online. We had been projecting that in the year 2027-28, we would have a peak negative balance of over $950,000. That would require, on an annual basis, an additional $56,000, either of additional revenue, by having Fund 10 cover some of those costs going forward, thus we're giving relief to those funds. Now, with an additional $30,000 available, that's down to $26,000 a year. And again, we can track moving forward what kind of relief becomes available from Fund 10 from years where we have low utility costs or other budget items coming in below budget, so that we can prepare well down the road to have enough money to cover these projects. I've also added that I think annually the best time to update this particular document would be in November. We will have passed our budget, so we'll know what we're levying into Fund 41. We'll know what we're budgeting for a transfer into Fund 46, and we will have made it through summer and its many projects that are ultimately taken care of in the summer. Are there any questions?
Again, something we discussed at a fair amount of length in the Finance Committee meeting, so questions may have come up then, and not much to talk about now. If anyone has some, ask them now, otherwise I'll entertain a motion to accept that recommendation.
I just want to, are you suggesting that we approve this 20-year plan every year?
Yes.
Okay.
So it would be updated, the next year would be added on. We get to see some of the history of how Fund 10 has been able to assist. And so yes, it would be updated, so we'd always have a 20-year plan on file.
I guess, so the only question that I'd have then is if we do this in November, which I like, will there ever be a time, or how, maybe should there be something done before the budget is passed to ensure that the things that we are planning to do in the next year are in fact covered by the budget? Because I could see a time where, for whatever reason, we fall short, or we decide to defer this project into another year. You know, so it would be another tool for the board to be aware of, okay, these are the things that we plan to do next year. They're on the plan, they've been on the plan, we're going to get them done. Or, hey, we don't need to do this one this year because, you know, that system is lasting longer than we thought.
Sure, and that becomes part of that updating in November. But as part of that budgeting process, as we move forward, moving through summer each year, we'll be taking a look and we'll know what kind of expenditures we need to budget for in Fund 41 and in Fund 46, and certainly whether or not there's enough money in those funds.
Yeah, so we could just add that to the process, that prior to the adoption of the final budget, we see what those those things are, because I remember, Jamie, times where we have this plan for summer to get all these things done, and we just run out of time. So they didn't get done in one budget year, but they still need to get done. Now they carry over into the next year. It'd be good to get an update of that prior to the passage of the budget each year.
Sure.
In addition to approving the plan in November, the plan as it exists in November, I think that would be a good add.
And I'll point out, you bring up the point about whether you get something done in that summer. The real part of the powerful piece of Fund 46 is that where in the past, if you found that your budget was coming below, was coming in really nicely, you had to get a project done by June, or that's just going to go into fund balance. When Fund 46 is online, we can decide in July, you know what, the budget came in under by $300,000, so we can go ahead and transfer an extra $100,000 into Fund 46 and take care of that in August if we wanted to, or further down in the fall, or even next summer. But we'd be putting money to do that project and incurring that cost in that prior budget year.
Part of that, and having this plan is part of the Fund 46.
Correct, that requirement for the 10-year plan. I think with the amount of work we're going to get done in the referendum, I think it was really important to move to a 20-year plan to look at years that aren't necessarily being supported with the referendum work that's being done now.
It's a great thing.
Okay, remind me, the funds that are in Fund 46, is that invested somehow?
It is, yes. We looked at investment options a while back at the Finance Committee and the full board. So we have those invested, especially because we have such a long period of time before we necessarily need to use them. We have invested with the Fort Washington State Bank in longer-term investments, such as 3 years out, 2 years out. And you'll see that each year as we add that interest earned to that to the fund balance in Fund 46.
Any other questions or discussion? Is there a motion to move that recommendation forward?
Move to approve the adoption revision of the 20-year capital improvement plan. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and it passes. Thanks, Topher. Some personnel recommendations. This you, Mr. Nelson?
I'm going to let Topher keep talking. He's on a roll. But I will say that, because last meeting he wasn't here and I kept talking. So as we look at our personnel recommendations, those do come from our discussions with principals about what are the predicted number of students that we have, based, as well as we looked at what our open enrollment seats that we'd already opened up earlier this year, and then looking at the middle school and high school, looking at student choice. So what are students registering for? How does that affect FTE? You know, we've had a little bit of a change because at the elementary and middle school there's a schedule change, and so that has resulted in a shift in some of our FTE based on those, and Topher can specifically talk to those pieces. But just so you know, it's in conjunction with the principals looking at number of students as well as student FTE, and Topher can walk us through that.
Sure. So, as Mr. Nelson said, we have these adjustments because of the scheduling changes, because of student FTE, because of course choices by students. So at the German, at the 612 level, we are, because of those changes, we are eliminating a .2 position at the 612 level. Spanish, we are eliminating a .6 position at the 612 level. And for math, we are eliminating a .2 position because we're able to take our advanced 5th graders, and they are able to take, there is room for them to take the advanced math class at the middle school. So we no longer need our high school .6 math teacher to take on that additional class of the advanced 5th graders. We also have a decrease in high school science of .4 That would be reducing the current full-time to a .6 position. We're also eliminating overload in the business department, and that would mean a reduction of .2. So one of our current full-time teachers is taking on an overload for that. Then because of scheduling changes and what's happened at the elementary with some of what you've heard about over the past few months, we did eliminate one Phy Ed position at the elementary level. We also did decrease a .5 position, Phy Ed position at the middle school. That is reducing, taking a full-time Phy Ed position, making it .5. We also decreased a .542 Tech Ed position at the middle school. We are also increasing consumer sciences at the high school by .4 because of increased enrollment there. In addition to these teaching positions, we do have a recommendation for adjustments to custodial staff. As you know, we've outsourced our cleaning at the high school and at the middle school. We do have daytime staff there to deal with anything that the principals might need help with, to go around and make sure that doors are locked, that doors aren't propped open, to address anything that might occur. We do not have that at the elementary level. So those are currently Aberdeen employees. They aren't our employees. And so we're recommending that, especially now that we're moving down to 2 buildings, and we don't need those daytime services necessarily for 3 buildings from Aberdeen, that we could instead hire 2 people. They would be in-house, and they would be our employees for the 2 elementary buildings to provide better service and better safety for our students, more accountability for those services because they're our employees. Are there any questions?
Those FTEs being reduced, are those people going to stay in those positions?
They would be, that would be the contract that they would be offered the next year.
Would you hire these maintenance people as simply an hourly wage? What would it cost us to hire these folks?
It would be, assuming full benefits, it would be for those 2 positions, it would be about $110,000. Now, this past year, I shouldn't say this past year, this year, we've had 3 daytime custodians from Aberdeen. If we still had 3 buildings going into next year, that would cost us over $90,000 to serve those 3 buildings. Now, next year it would be perhaps over $60,000 with just 2 buildings. But we're taking advantage of the fact that there's some relief in going down into 2 elementary buildings to help us with our budget.
So we've budgeted that it's going to be an increase of $17,000 to have daytime employees that are our custodians, is what we're saying. So that's a cost. So could it be a reduction? Yeah, as we move from 3 to 2, if we continue to outsource that could be a savings for us. However, at leadership, that was one of the #1 priorities for our admin team, was listening to concerns that staff had about the cleanliness of our buildings, taking personal responsibility for our buildings, just having those employees be ours and not contracted out during the day, really having them be part of that family. If you're having breakfast in the morning, if you're doing a PBIS assembly, some buildings have someone, even though they work for everything, they are part of their culture. Not all buildings have that, and so by being able to bring someone on board, although it'll cost us more money, we see that as being money well spent. We prioritize that as a leadership team.
I think it's a great idea. It's nice to have the consistency and, at least at our building in Woodview, I think it would be really important.
You see any challenges in any of the reductions in professional staff in terms of, because most of them are, we've got a .2 German, we're eliminating that .2.
Right, we hit jackpot to hire a .2 German teacher, and she's outstanding. But the odds of that happening every year, so that doesn't, probably the only thing that I would say concerns me is the discussion I've had with Mr. Manti and Topher about the science and hiring a .6.
Yeah.
That's a tough, it's biology is what I believe the course load will be. Yep. Prominently, so the majority of people are going to have that license. but that may be a difficult piece to hire. So we are aware that that may be something to watch, to look at. But looking at class sizes,
Yeah, no, I agree.
but we are aware that that's a difficult thing. The other pieces, increasing the consumer science to .4. We have a lead on someone that is interested in working part-time only. So that may work out that way, but that's a tough hire as well. So you are looking for a perfect person. If we weren't able to hire someone, then we'd have to redistribute students. They have to choose different electives. But it's great that students, we talk about being a comprehensive high school and offering a wide range of things for students, so when they exceed what we have one teacher and they exceed that, then we have to try and bring someone on board to meet those needs that they have the best that we can.
Any other questions? Is the motion to approve the recommendation? Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And Joe's motion is carried. Okay, an athletic field update. Topher.
So at the last Finance Committee meeting, we also had quite a bit of discussion about our athletic field projects. In fact, we had Rettler here to give us updates on both the soccer field projects as well as the tennis courts. And then they also presented the updated budget for our varsity baseball and varsity softball field projects to bring that to the high school. They have increased significantly. Go back to July with them having come on and done some of the site surveying as well as changes to the scope of the project. Now, with that being said, with the increased cost, the next steps moving forward would be for Rettler to bid out the projects, put actual bid numbers to those projects, including some of the alternative bids, such as turf infields, that I think would be of a lot of interest to a lot of people. And then to look at what an appropriate use of fund balance would be. As you know, we use a levy into Fund 41, which essentially acts as a transfer to Fund 41 from our fund balance. In June, we'll have a better idea of what potentially we could be adding into fund balance, how much we could tap into fund balance to tackle these projects while maintaining a fund balance ratio of over 15%.
So I've also had a board member reach out to me, and then I reached out to Dr. Ziegler with the price escalating, and as we look at the baseball and the softball field, just going with not even including looking at turf or lights or anything like that, but simply truly just the base bid being at approximately $1 million, is the board interested in us looking at other options? We've currently expressed a desire to have everything on our high school campus. Is there, with that price being so high, is there an interest for the board for us to look into what would it cost if we were to keep the fields at John Long and to make those fields turf there? They're currently there. Do an upgrade on various pieces of those fields. What would be the cost? The cost comparison to that, or possibly partnering with, whether it's Little League or whatever it may be. Is there other pieces that would, on the board, would be interested in us looking into in those areas?
I would like to see other options. In light of the continued increase in costs and the board's commitment to address these matters outside of the referendum, I think it would be wise to understand from Rettler what the as-bid cost would be currently designed, the as-bid with alternate designs that would be more encompassing of turf fields and other, and then a third option that would be and maybe it's two options. One would be improving the existing fields in an enhanced but safe state, and then improving the existing fields to incorporate the options that were being considered if everything moved over here. You know, to me, it just feels like, in light of the escalating costs, again, our commitment to get this taken care of outside of the referendum, we should find the most cost-effective way to do that, that doesn't degrade fund balance. And I know all the projections right now are that it doesn't, and that's a great thing. If we can accomplish it and still hit our goals relative to fund balance, then let's do that. Let's do it in a prudent, planful manner, understand what all the options are. That's what I'd like to see. It's more work on Rutler's part, but I think I would suspect the costs are transferable from one location to the other, especially as it relates to the alternates.
So there'd be some design fees that we would absorb through them, but we're talking about $1 million project here. So, you know, the fees that would be entailed in that are maybe wise for us to consider. Are there other options? But we're really reaching out to the board. We put a lot of work into this with Rattler. However, like, we also want to do a bidding of the board. You want to move forward with something that you aren't interested in.
That's my thought.
I don't think the costs are done on what's up here either. I think they're going to go up here.
I agree.
And looking back at, and that's really old, but renovating, say, those 3 fields over there that was probably 2015, the point of beginnings looked at that. That's in the neighborhood. That was in the neighborhood of 800,000 back then.
So your point, it may not be the most prudent option.
I don't know, but
I would agree.
Don't know.
I would agree, yeah.
Did the cost, I guess I don't know if we danced around the edges or asked Rattler the other day, but I was disappointed to hear him say we made a 3-dimensional bid on with 2-dimensional plans. I just don't get how that's our problem now, that they just did it in a way that wasn't complete. I don't get that. Some of it was us expanding our diamonds, I guess, and so they didn't know they were going to have to raise, and maybe that was the whole thing. I don't know, but I don't think that was a satisfactory explanation as to why this is so much more than they told us originally. But I would be interested to know, and of course this will be up to you, not me, but how much money is it worth? How big is the savings? Does it make it worth not putting all the fields at this location? Because I think there's a cost to not having everything on campus here. You save, penny-wise and pound foolish, maybe, you save some money up front, but you don't get that campus that looks like a attractive campus for the next 30, 40 years, as attractive as it could be. So, in my view, if I was going to be here, it'd have to be a really big savings to not go forward with putting everything here, because I just think that's the right thing to do for a school campus, and it's right for us to do as we try to attract families and students going forward. I think there would be a cost there that would be intangible, but it could be fairly significant if we don't do it, the right way, in my view, I guess.
And I would say we would have to look at all possible options. I'm really nervous about depleting fund balance down to just 15% as this price has continued to escalate. As it says, there's originally 1.2 million for all 3, and the price keeps going up, 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 up. If we commit, and the board did commit to funding this, but as the price goes up and up and up, we're running into, if we deplete our fund balance down to where we want to be at 15%, well, then we're there. If something else comes up, we just set aside all of that money for the fields. Sorry, that's what we put all our money towards. I think we have to look very carefully to make sure that this is the best financial decision.
We seem to be using 15% as our floor for our fund balance right now. We didn't change the policy, right? We're still at 10 to 15% is what is our policy as an acceptable fund balance. I like 15% better, but we aren't constricted by that, or restricted by that. We just wanted to not go below that, and if that's the new floor, we should make that a new policy. But right now, we have the freedom to go down to 10 and still, stay within our current policy.
Yeah, technically, fund balance of at least 10 to 15%. It really does mean 10.
Yeah.
But certainly, being prudent and trying to keep that above 15 is certainly a sensible, I would say.
it's probably, because of that, it probably makes sense to put that on maybe one of the next policy meetings and say, let's change it, because we are acting as if. We might as well discuss that down the road if that's going to be our new minimum. Let's look at that. But for now, it's not.
Well, and policy dictates what we can do. We can have more. It's saying we have to at least. So we want to be careful that.
Nice to have.
Yeah, it's nice to have some wiggle room for the board so that if there is something that comes along, that you aren't recreating policy every time. So what I'm hearing, I've heard a couple people, is there a feeling, a consensus amongst the board that you'd want us to come back to look at what are some options, work with Rattler to say, what are some of those pieces? I mean, they came in right on, at the soccer project came in right on budget. That they were right on with that one. This has expanded into a larger number, which it was a fair question that a board member asked. We want to bring it to you to see what would the board like us to do.
Well, and I think I just add to Terry's point on our commitment to get this done and being penny wise and pound foolish, if we need to go to Rattler and ask them for a proposal of what they would what they will need to charge us to understand our options relative to this broader scope, then let's do that. But, get a cost and make a determination that we pay that fee to get better information to make the right decision. I mean, because if that cost goes up and there are other ways to fund it through a public-private partnership and utilization of fund balance, better to get it done and get it done right than to piece it together because we have this restriction, some restriction that may or may not actually be a restriction. So, if I were Rattler, I don't know that I'd want to continue to work on, well, here's another proposal. Oh, by the way, they want to see this, and oh, by the way, they want to see that.
Sure.
I mean, let's find out what they would charge us, if they need to charge us, to provide more options for us to consider.
Would you like to, would you like us then to wait until the next board meeting before we move forward with them? Or do you want to authorize us to be able to look at that fee and determine if we can cover that in our current budget?
Do that.
Because I'd be afraid that if we were to wait till the end of May, or end of April, okay, so.
I'm just saying,
yes.
keep moving,
Okay.
and if you have to spend something to get the best proposal, then let's.
And that would come out of this year's budget, we would look at that, so it would be I don't know what the number would be even, but I can't believe it's going to be large, that we could work with. Okay, so then that's, we see a direction.
Is part of that, is it reaching out to the Little League and talking to some of the other people? I mean, at this point, we'd have baseball fields that would be used from the middle of March till first week of June. That would be our window that our fields would be used. So what else would we do? Who else? I mean, how else can we get any kind of agreements as far as who would have access to those fields and be involved in those type of things? Because at this point, nobody else is using our 9th Avenue field, correct? The varsity field, baseball.
Correct. Yep.
So at this point, we're the only ones that are using that. So, I mean, is that understanding some of those types of things with the field usage as well? Otherwise, that field's going to sit for 9.5 months with nobody using it.
So I think there's 3 options, and we'd have to investigate all 3 of them with our insurance company. So is there a possibility of us, obviously there is. We know that there's one option that we know of. It's right here on our campus. Another option would be to look at our current fields that we have, that we maintain to make sure the safety piece is in place. Other people use them, but they have their own liability insurance that goes with that. Or to look at partnering with Little League to say, okay, well, we need a brand new field for baseball because they don't have a big enough field to support varsity baseball, right? Not a baseball guy, but I know what Diamond Drive is now. Let me remember that. I'm going to keep using that. But to work to say what would that cost be, and is that even something that, looking at insurance-wide, how does that impact our insurance with student liability if someone else is in charge of maintenance of something and we're just paying a set fee to say, we'll be part of your association for however many years they have a lease there. I don't know how many, I think they had a 20-year lease, so maybe it's down to 17 or 16 or whatever it is, right? But it'd be and then, we'd have to do a price comparison to say, how does that help us in the long run? Is that a one-time fee? Is that so many thousands a year? You look at the cost comparison over time that would go with that. I mean, if we were to use it, policy committee will be looking at rental of fields. If we had turf fields and we wanted to rent that out to people, I would think that would be definitely a possibility that people would want to be using that. Schools, it seems like every time you read anything about baseball and everyone moving to spring baseball in a year, schools are looking at, there's a local district just looking now at moving to turf on their infield for baseball. So you're going to see more and more of that, of schools looking to do that, and those that can't will be looking to utilize other people's fields and rent them.
I mean, literally would have very little time on those fields too. You're right, if we're using them till early June, they're going to the end of June before they get tournament time, so there's not a lot of extra time that they would get out of it. But all this can change, I think, with the spring baseball thing. We might see a shift towards more travel ball, looking for summer options, summer teams, be it Legion ball. And they're going to, that'd be brand new. They need a place to play.
So if you have suggestions, feel free to reach out to us, but we'll start working on it.
All set. Any other questions? Any other additions? Okay. Then we'll move on. Diana, it looks like you are up. Elementary math curriculum.
Okay, so the purpose of tonight's presentation is a short, brief version of the presentation that we did at the curriculum meeting on March 12th. So at that meeting, the math team, 13 teachers, many of whom were there, talked through why we are recommending the move to adopt Bridges as the new elementary math curriculum. So I'll highlight some of those pieces tonight, offer an opportunity for any additional questions, and then we're seeking board approval that was recommended by the curriculum committee to bring to the full board tonight. So just a reminder who was on the team. There are a total of 13 teachers, several from 4K through 2nd grade, 3rd through 5th grade. We had special education. We had both of our coaches and our math interventionist. And then originally, Michael was the one administrator on the team, but since then, obviously both Karen and Craig have been part of the discussions and some of the readings that we did regarding research. So our process began a year and a half ago. We started back in December of 2016. Over that time until our last meeting, which happened to be right before the curriculum committee on March 8th, we had met for a total of 45 hours as a team. We studied current research, best practices in math through multiple resources, not just one. We looked at feedback from 25 surrounding districts as to what their math curriculum was, when did they adopt it, how were they liking it, what did they notice, what did they see with their data, etc. We used that to help us narrow down what we wanted to investigate further, one of which was stepping stones. We had stepping stones 1.0. We took the opportunity this year to go into stepping stones 2.0 free of charge, so that we could really take a look at if the changes in the new version made a difference for us. And then we decided to look at bridges and math expressions. We did that through multiple ways. All teachers on the team received digital access, and we had hardcover or paper access to some of the materials, digital to all of the materials for both math expressions, bridges, and stepping stones 2.0. Companies came out, including Stepping Stones. We also had, it's not on here, but we had a Stepping Stones professional development come last year, because our original investigation was, are we just not using it correctly? So we sort of started there. And then we did a total of 6 visits. So we went to 2 different districts to see Stepping Stones, to see if they were doing something different than we were doing that really kind of illuminated why maybe our math scores weren't going the right direction, because ultimately that's part of why we began this investigation. And then we went to one district to see math expressions and about 3 to see bridges across our team. We planned math professional development for elementary teachers focused primarily on powering our standards and then looking at best practices and teaching practices, not necessarily aligned to any one curriculum resource, but more aligned to what is research saying about best practice in math. Many of the team, not all of the team, about 8 members of the 13-member team attended the National Conference of Teachers of Mathematics. It was local in Chicago. Great opportunity to be able to go. They went with the lens around best practice, primarily in assessment, kind of looking at what do they learn that we could be doing better, and then they came back and presented to their peers at one of our PD sessions this year. And then we also sent out a survey to teachers February, I believe, to see what are they noticing about Stepping Stones 2.0, to see if sort of the informal data that I heard and we heard a lot through talking to teachers previously, had that changed with the new version of 2.0. That survey data led to some interesting results, very supportive of what the informal conversations had we kind of knew from those. So a total of 82.2% of teachers surveyed expressed a need for a new curriculum resource. 83% of our classroom teachers participated in the survey. That's a really high amount. They did not get work time, like at a staff meeting, to do the survey, so they really had to do that on their own time. Maybe it was open for like a week and a half or so. 57% of special education teachers participated. That's a rough estimate because it's hard to know exactly who's teaching what in special ed because they're all over the place. So the questions were, I kind of separated them out on purpose. So one was, I believe Stepping Stones currently does not meet the needs of my students, and I'm excited about a new resource. 64% of teachers said that. Then there was, I believe Stepping Stones currently does not meet the needs of my students, but I'm a little bit apprehensive about a new resource, and 17, almost 18% said that. And then of course there was, I'm good, it's meeting the needs, and there was only 17% saying that. So overwhelmingly, we have a need to move forward, but we do have some apprehension with everything that's going on at the elementary level, which is, understandable. So in making the decision, we looked at that best practice, and I just highlighted in bold what we were really looking for: increased math talk, conceptual understanding, deeper thinking, early numeracy, independence, community, AVMR, which is our math recovery that we are now providing, practice standards and content standards. So content obviously is about content. Practice is there's 8 practice standards, and they really focus on the mathematical practices that we want are instilled regardless of content, like fluency, for example, problem solving. We were looking for opportunities for productive struggle and opportunities to solve problems at a higher level. Those are things that all of the research suggests best practice in math should include. So we really came to unanimous after seeing bridges once and seeing math expressions. We eliminated math expressions immediately, and we delved into exploring bridges more, asking a lot of questions, reaching out to a lot of districts that use it. Number one, a lot of districts do use it, which is a key factor right there. Talking to multiple districts, for example, I went alone to Oconomowoc because it's way out where I live, but they're in year 1. I know a principal there, so I went to his school, talked to his teachers, reported back to the team. Beth and Jen and Caitlin went to Oshkosh alone because that's far the other way, but they've been in it for maybe 4 years. And then the rest of the team, we went to Elmbrook together, and we went to Menominee Falls together. Menominee Falls is in year 5, Elmbrook in year 2. So we really wanted to see what are people saying when they're in it for multiple years? What are people saying when they're in it for the first 2 years, which is usually the most difficult time of any implementation. Bridges is broken into 2 sections or 2 components. Bridges, which is the main 60-minute formatted lesson. It's really set up like a workshop. mini lesson independent practice. There's a student book. What we really liked are these things called workplace stations. So they're sort of like what you might think as a center, but they're active engagement and game-based, but students are applying the standards, they're productively struggling. It gives teachers an opportunity to really assess how kids are doing. And there's a home connections piece, there's some STEM pieces involved in that. Number Corner is the part of Bridges that no other curriculum resource has, and that's really what we liked about it. It's an additional 15 to 20 minute component, sort of like shared reading would be in reading. So you have Reader's Workshop, but for the K2 you have shared reading, which is another opportunity to model good behaviors in reading. That's what Number Corner is. It's an opportunity for kids to literally come to the corner. So they literally come to an area of the classroom where they use the calendar as the main tool to practice multiple numeracy skills, and they get more complex. So we saw that happening in kindergarten when on a visit, and we saw that happening at 4th grade. And obviously it looked very different, but it was an opportunity for kids to actually engage in problem solving right then and there. So we really, Number Corner was really a huge piece of why we ended up choosing Bridges. So to address teacher learning moving forward, a few things that we have in place. We have a one-day training for Bridges. It actually is going to be May. All of the teachers, they had an opportunity just last week to choose. 98% chose May. So the two that didn't, one is on maternity leave. She is able to do a online version for 4K, and the others would be new teachers that would have to do the August training, but everybody else chose the May 29th date. We're beginning a grade level leadership position next year. It's not just going to be about math, but for next year a heavy focus will be math. Those will be teachers being trained in PLCs. A lot of excitement around that position. That idea came from a couple districts that are using that model to really implement Bridges well. We have this new schedule. Obviously, that gives us regular grade level collaboration time. We have our PD days will be focused on math implementation. We'll have our instructional coaching focus, and we have LBC opportunity this summer for our teachers, both focused on special ed and regular ed. So that's being done with contracting out some teachers from other districts. So I've secured a Menominee Falls special education math specialist to help with the math for special ed teachers, so that they typically don't get something real focused into what they can do to help support students. And I'm working right now to secure an Oshkosh teacher. She's a math coach at the elementary level, and she would be working with Beth and Jen to facilitate the LBC for regular ed teachers. So that is almost secured. So, any questions?
Remedial or for
Nope.
enrichment or both?
It's part of core instruction. It's not remedial, it's for all students, it's core instruction. One of the things we noticed on our math visits, even in the schools that were in year 2, and I saw it in year 1, Oconomowoc, was the increase of the ability for kids to be able to talk about math, to be able to share their thinking and their strategies, and to be able to verbalize that using math vocabulary, and to be able to really express their understandings of numbers, and that a lot of the teachers we talked to said that's because of Number Corner. If there's anything not to leave out, it's Number Corner. And that's predominantly what we heard and what teachers were immediately. In fact, I think I said at the curriculum committee, a couple teachers came back and started trying to create their own, just from the online version of Bridges, like Molly Lucarelli. She came back and immediately she and Jess started putting together their own made-up version of Number Corner because they liked it so much, and they already saw an increase in the math talk, and they're not even completely doing it correctly because they haven't been trained yet. But that's how much they really, really wanted to move forward with Bridges.
Did you ask about the training? Is the one day sufficient? Is that going to be
Yeah. I did, that was part of the questionnaire too. So once we really were focused on bridges, I sent a specific questionnaire to probably 9 different districts, specifically asking about bridges. The 1-day training, the 2-day training. What did they do? What would they do differently? What would they suggest? And we analyzed all of that data. Most of the districts did the 1-day training and said that that they felt like the 1-day training was enough as long as you put into place an opportunity to continue the training and planning in your district. And that one district did the 2-day training, but it wasn't enough because they said that teachers forgot some of the things from the or the June training until they were into it like in October, and so they had to redo it anyway. So we went with the 1-day training, particularly because of all the packing that we need to do. Normally, the 3 days at the end of the school year, which are a great opportunity, could have been easily used for 2 days of training. But this year, there were some challenges. So the team felt like, let's go with the 1 day, let's put in LBC, and let's create this leadership position to keep that training going on. And that seemed to be really successful in the several of the districts that have implemented that sort of model.
Questions for Diana?
So the leadership position would be in, I think you had answered this last time, one school or both of the elementary schools?
Yeah, so it'll be, there's one teacher from each grade level from each school that's going to be trained in the PLC model and will be a PLC leader in their building. One of those people per grade level will be the district leader that will be on this leadership team. And it'll focus, like I said, there'll be a big focus on math, but of course other needs that come up from their team will be addressed. And the PD 45 that is in the schedule that you heard this evening that people were really excited about, that's going to be the opportunity. Those 9 times, well, 6 of them will be focused on teaching and learning from the curriculum aspect. That will be the opportunity where the schools come together, the grade level, so all of 2nd grade will be together. And the leader will have, will have sort of planned to facilitate that. So they'll meet with me, so it's a stipend position coming out of my budget, not an ad in any way. And that would include meeting with me as a team 6 times, prior to each of those times. And 3 of those 9 PD 45s will be focused on data and data reviews.
Anything else? So we need a motion to approve the recommendation?
Yes.
I'll make that motion to approve the recommendation for the new Bridges curriculum.
Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And it passes. A new board member orientation
Thank you.
discussion. No, thank you, Diana. Appreciate it.
What? Yes, I did.
We'll let Carrie run this because she did so much work on it some months ago.
I think everyone has seen it from months ago, the new board member orientation. I don't know if there's any specific questions regarding it. I don't know if you guys remember it even. Looked it over. Vaguely familiar. Basically, it just comes down to, Jeff will fill out, it's a 1-page form on or really Kara will probably fill out a 1-page form that will be given to all new board members that just has basic information about our district, that just summarizes it for them. It's basically how many students we have, all the percentage English learners, students receiving free lunch, phone numbers and emails for all the staff, and then as well as other board members. And then just so that they can get up to speed. The other one for preparing new board members. Jeff, I'm sure you're familiar with it because you've already started gathering the material. Other than we'd all welcome the new board member within 24 hours of them being elected, either by text, email, or a phone call. And Kara, I'm sure, could provide us the information to do so. No one has to actually do anything other than the board president, which we will, if Terry really feels inspired, or it will be delayed until we elect a new board president at the end of April. But the new board member would be free to, with that information that they have, ask any board member questions, but primarily, unfortunately, it falls on Jeff to do the majority of the work initially.
It seemed like when we went through this, there was a lot of stuff available. Some of us, you know, I remember Jerry saying some of the stuff wasn't necessary. When you came on, other stuff would have been nice to have. So it was a bit of a checklist. What do you want? What do you think you need? You're not required to do everything there, but there's a lot of great stuff that a new board member wouldn't know to ask, wouldn't know that they didn't know. And so there's some good discussions, and you can probably divvy up the responsibilities so Jeff doesn't have to take on all of it. And you might, I don't know how we left it with a mentor. Do we assign a mentor if requested? I think was how it was left. So you guys can figure that one out as well, but that's all something to be divvied up once that board member lets you know what they all need.
And yeah, primarily it falls on the school board president / mentor. So if the mentor gets assigned, if not, it fell to the school board president. And you said you'd be more than willing to do it, but.
I'm sure the next one will too.
Other than that, as I said, it really is, and everyone can have a chance to look over it if you have any real concerns before the April meeting. Because then, realistically, between now and April, other than we will reach out, and I think everyone can agree that they're probably willing to at least reach out to a new board member and just congratulate them. And Kara will provide that person with our phone numbers and email, so if they reach out.
Can you share the final document with Kara and I?
Sure.
Electronically, that'd be great. You might have it. I don't think I do. I think I've seen it, but I don't think I have the final document. So if you could share that, that'd be great. And then we can keep track of that also.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things that board members have historically underutilized, not so much more recently, but earlier on, was some of the other resources like WASB's seminars on school financing, on board governance, and things like that. And I think that should maybe be pushed a little bit more to new board members, because there's a lot of training that can happen that you don't have to take hours away from Jeff's schedule or from Topher's schedule or from the treasurer's schedule to talk about school finance. There's a lot that can be learned. And I think in the old days we didn't use them much. Nowadays, board members are going to some of those resources much more often. And there's probably other resources I don't even know about, but just pointing people to those directions so they can come in a little bit better prepared would make sense.
Yeah, it says that new board members will be let known of the new WASB new board member workshops and register them if they're interested.
I would push them a little bit.
Well, Jeff, it says under superintendent, so Kara would like you to push them.
Well, I mean, Jeff can't push a board member to do that, but I would say encourage. Because there's, it's complicated. School district financing is hard to pick up on the seat of your pants. It's just hard. Yep. It's best to get some training if you can get it. And there's publications too. There's books. You don't have to go to seminars, but anyway.
I have books, yeah. Julia McNally gave me books to give to the new board members.
Good.
I got one of those, thank you. I do think seriously, they might be in there, things like where our policies, Mark mentioned that to me, I don't know, a while back, where to find that information, kind of right away as a new board member where I can, kind of stuff just.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even learning about quorums. I mean, going to the WASB seminars helps with all the legal aspects of being a board member.
Reply all.
Like, don't reply all. Don't reply sometimes. Like the president, I don't know.
Well, it's been a while since I read that, but it was a fairly exhaustive and comprehensive list, so I don't think there'll be anything missed there. It's a matter of what people want to take advantage of. But you all, especially those who
board again, just in case.
Those who have got on more recently might have a more recent memory of what they found most valuable. Okay. Good. Okay, Steve, I guess we'll throw it to you to talk about some board policies.
So we have 34.262 and Rule 342.62. So program for English language learners. We had a second reading at our March 12th meeting. I just had one question of a discussion that we had. It's when Terry made his grand entrance, and it might have thrown us all off here. But there was under section 1, the last sentence, which was achieving academically. I thought we were changing that to growing academically. If we recall.
That does sound familiar.
Yeah.
I believe you said that just as Dr. Ziegler told me to move. If I
You got a new chair.
got to make sure I got to get that on the record here. Which I didn't, for the record, I did move. I got a different chair for myself. That's true.
So Kara and I were going back and forth on that one, and we just think we were caught up in we're caught up in the moment. So,
But you are correct. I remember in that discussion. Good catch.
so that is the only thing that I had noted from rereading what we had agreed upon at our meeting.
So, let me pull these up. Which one, are we looking for motions for
We're looking for
both?
adoption.
You want to put them both in one motion? So who would like to make that motion?
I would make a motion to approve 34.262 and Rule 34.62 with the changing of the grammar from achieving to growing as approved by the policy committee.
I will second that.
Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And it passes.
And you're still invited to the policy committee.
Special chair.
Sorry. In the hallway. All right, we have a discussion on board goals, objectives, and success indicators.
So at the last meeting, we talked about the group taking a look at, or the board taking a look at the actual board goals. As we move to seat the new board shortly here, probably not necessarily or worthwhile to get into the objectives and the success criteria. But if we can agree that those are reasonable and appropriate and sufficiently broad goals, I would say we use that as a starting point for the new board to pick up and run in the development of objectives and success indicators. So is there agreement to that effect? And we'll continue to work forward with this as we seat the new board and develop this further.
Okay. May board meeting schedule, Jeff.
Yeah, so the May 28th is a holiday, and so as we look ahead to our May schedule, I'd like to look at a different date for that. Typically we'd look back a week, but the 21st is actually the GEF's color run, so that would not be a great time for that. So the 28th is Memorial Day. So if we were to look at, so it's really either looking at the 14th, which is when our board committee meetings meet. I know that there are multiple committee meetings already scheduled for that. So I would recommend maybe the 29th, if people, that Tuesday night. Because I think the 14th, I think there's some important things. I know the policy committee, we have some things to look at as well, as we've talked about having Neola and thank you, WASB come in and make a presentation to us, so we can look ahead to next year and looking at getting all of our policies on a cycle. So I think there's some important committee meetings, and there aren't as many presentations next time, so it wouldn't be like this long of a meeting like we currently have. But if we had those committee meetings in there, I think it'd be quite a bit of time. So I'm wondering about the 29th or any time that week, but I'm just thinking of moving it a day. Everyone's good with that? Okay, so then we want to get that on our calendar to plan that out. Great. So we'll keep our committee meetings on the 14th that we currently have scheduled, and we'll look at the 29th as being our normal May board meeting. Excellent.
Okay, some gift reports, Jeff.
Yes, so we have three gift reports that we're asking the board for approval for. So we have one from the Rose Harms Post 355 American Legion for our Graftonics. So they made a donation of $300. And then we have Carl Bellman, who has donated $2,500 for to help cover the cost of wireless mic system in the auditorium. So our Fine Arts program is looking to raise $50,000 for wireless mics and a new sound system moving forward. They're in the process of raising funds for that. The district is allocating $25,000 towards that $50,000, but they're raising funds towards the rest of that. So we're using that out of our budget right now. Some of our budgets have come in under, so we're using that to help them in that way, but this is a donation of $2,500. They have a GoFundMe page, so if people want to still continue to give, they can, which is a great way to give back to our fine arts, both at the high school and at the middle school. And then you heard Bob Hoffman talk about this last month, actually, with GEF is serving as a flow-through for Brian Tunison, is donating $500 to purchase veterinary science textbooks. And the back letter talks about that if it costs less than that, then all that money should be going to the HOSA competition. So he's supporting our HOSA program and making a donation that's set aside for that program. So we would ask the board to approve those 3 donations.
So motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions for Jeff? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And it passes.
Great. So we'll send a thank you letter to each of those individuals and organization in one hand to thank them for the support of our kids. So we have some pictures that we're going to show you, has some updates of what's happening on our construction updates, and then Jamie probably has some words of wisdom for us as well, I'm sure.
Maybe.
So Kennedy, as we click through it, you start to see the outside of the gymnasium, and then going on to the classroom side, they're starting to fill that in. Those will be done by the end of this week. And see a further version, you can see the windows that are in as you're going on. And then on the classroom side, where our LMC's going in and classrooms and so forth, you can see it taking shape there. And they'll be moving around to that side for bricking as well. And then on the lower floor, you can start seeing steel studs going in. This is on the upper part of it. That upper part of it, they're starting to put steel studs up. They'll be moving into some drywalling and so forth in the next couple weeks. I think the next one's the lower floor. Nope, that's still on the upper floor. There's the lower floor. So lower floor, they're getting ready to pour concrete. I don't think have they poured yet, Craig? Did they pour today?
I haven't been back there, but I think it's
It's coming up soon. I know I talked about it on Friday at our update. So you can start seeing the lower floor. They have the plumbing roughed in for that. Plumbing's above, piping above, electrical things and so forth. So a lot of progress being made at Kennedy. They over break. We took the ceiling. There's another shot of the area down there, support beams and so forth. They took out the ceiling tiles in the hallways because they're going to start needing to. They're trying to see how they're going to do their runs because you have various piping need to get in there. Right now it's 10 feet high, and they need to run some piping through there, so they might have to drop that a foot to 9 foot to be able to run that all the way down there. They're going to be working on the ramp at the end of that hallway and constructing that ramp over break. So Kennedy will be shut down over break as they're doing work between the existing building and the addition. And there'll be a door that's built on the end of that with a padlock on it for safety reasons and so forth. So that's what's going on at Kennedy. At Woodview, you can see the new spaces that have gone on the east side that are classroom. They poured, in 2 days, they poured that whole thing, so it's a massive space. They'll start putting steel studs up next week. Yep, that's a similar thing. You can see it's a tough angle to see, but you can see the concrete that's going into that area. There's the windows that are coming in that are borrowing that natural light, so the current exterior. The exterior, those things had great outdoor light. Well, now they're not going to have that, so they're bringing in that borrowed light that will bounce off the hallway and back into the classroom. On the exterior, they have a ton of exterior brick being done and completed coming around the building. That's on the main side or on the south side of Woodview. And then you can see the area that's being done, and there's space that's being left for the flashing. The windows are in, brick is going up. Great progress being made there. Steel studs going up on the inside, that's back in the kitchen area. They've been working on that and bringing that new kitchen area to fruition. They'll be working, I have drywalling starting over spring break in that new kitchen area. And they'll also be taking down some ceilings in the current hallways in that area to be able to see what's up above there for their piping issues that they might have. So until they start taking that ceiling tile down, they can't really see what's up there and start figuring out some of those areas that they have. So at the high school, a big thing that happened just a week ago was the connector coming down between GES and the high school. And they just, there's a teacher taking a picture from the room as students were looking out. It was funny seeing elementary GES students waving at high school students across the way. Were you one of those students? Yeah. They were waving at each other. So it was really a big deal. And I think bittersweet for a lot of people because there's so many people who've used that connector. So it's the beginning of that process there. But they tore that down. And you can see more from above. I think this is Mr. Bergman from his room actually. They took a picture, and you can see that in a day they had that whole thing cleaned out and then had it blocked off at each of the GES and the high school in that way. And then they started putting footings right away the next day. So they go back one. They put footings in, and they're already pouring concrete for that area. And by the time we come back from break, there'll be some steel going up in that area. So it'll start taking shape. So you drive by on Highway 60, it's like a double take to not see a connector, but now it'll start seeing the building and how close it actually will be to district office that goes with it. And then in the cafeteria area, you can start seeing the soffit being developed. So it's that curved soffit, and then there's going to be doors that are going to come down and close that off. But that's the curved soffit, and then on this side over here is where the ordering stations are going to be. So they're starting to put drywall up, and how they figured that out. And then you can see more of it from this side. That's going to be the serving areas. You're heading into that area. So something you can't see because it's walled off right now, but the steel studs, and they're putting the drywall up in that. The freezer's in, the cooler's in, and they poured the concrete for that. And then in the locker rooms, so they bring in this massive tool right here, and they had to take out, if there's an X on it, that means the wall was coming down, and they also had to cut out that middle area to get plumbing for all of the athletic locker, for the plumbing that needs to occur for the new lockers. So that's the beginning of it, and then you can see, then they're tearing that out. So they got all that brick out of there, and because the doors were so short, they actually had to hand wheel that out. So that was not that was a labor-intensive piece, and it was heavy, and at least they had the equipment to break it up in that way. So locker rooms they're starting to work in there and throw plumbing down and so forth in that area. And then in the new area of the new gym, these are the coaches' offices. You can see the windows that are in, the drywall that's up in that hallway. So on the right is the gym, on the left is going to be, those are coaches' offices. You go down, there's men's restroom, women's restroom. On this side are the cabanas that are for the family locker rooms for the pool area that we don't have currently. So that will allow that to be separated. So they have drywall though going up in that area down by the new gym. And that is it. And Jamie probably has a couple more things.
Yeah, pretty much covered everything. Thanks.
Good pictures.
Yeah. Next week, with spring break, we're going to dive into the classrooms, some of the spaces that we cannot get into while students are around. So you will see cafeteria floor tiling removed at the high school. That will be done next week. We are running a new water main to the high school, so the high school will be without water next week. We Energies will be running a new electrical feed all the way from 17th Avenue to the high school, and this will allow them to start building a maintenance bill about April 15th, right around that time. So that is happening. Right now you're seeing the contractors running the chilled water mains down the hallways at the high school, and they are currently disassembling our existing centrifugal chiller. So we will be without any, if Mother Nature has the weather warm up, we will be without air conditioning. So that's one thing to remember. Like Jeff mentioned, we're 3 weeks into the renovation with the locker rooms, and we're on schedule, so everything is looking very well there. High school, or actually Kennedy, we just got done doing abatement in the boiler room. Over spring break, we will be all from, what is that? What road is over at, can't think of the road right now, but anyway, we're going to be trenching in and running a new water main at Kennedy. So that will happen over spring break. And also, like Jeff mentioned, we will be starting to build a ramp on the south side at Kennedy. And I think that's it. Covers it.
Any questions? Thank you, gentlemen. Jamie, thanks for coming over. We're up to our last agenda item, Mr. Nelson.
We tried to get to Z so it could be for Ziegler.
Yeah,
but
good effort.
we wanted to go home before it got to be Tuesday. So, yeah, T for Topher. Terry. Oh, there we go. See, I should have thought of that.
It's late.
That's good. See, I should have thought earlier. So, Dr. Ziegler has been on the board for 15 years, and 9 of those years he has served as the chairman of the board. And so we've looking back, if we were to look at approximately how many graduates we've had in our district in 15 years, we've had approximately 2,850 graduates that have walked across the stage. And Dr. Ziegler has been, as a leader of our district, helping the board and being involved in the board, being involved in the community, a big part of the success of our graduates. And it was great hearing Carl talk about some of his graduates, but Terry's seen those kids come across the stage, and that will be his legacy in that way of just the continued growth of our district. So I don't know if other board members would like to say something on behalf to Terry. We have a presentation to give him, but if board members would like to say something.
Well, I've got a few things to say. and it's important. And I've worked with Terry now all 15 of those years. So Terry operated and continues to operate really on 2 philosophies. One, stay out of the newspaper. And 2 is always, always, always push for higher achievement and rigor and a keen insight into what's best for kids. It is interesting, over that 15 years, actually over the last 10, Terry has presided over some of the most profound changes in public education, actually in the state. Act 10, and all the things that came with Act 10, and the development for the district, the first handbook. And I remember Terry and Jeff, but Dr. Pachura at the time, standing up in front in the auditorium when we had an open session with all of the teachers, fielding a lot of difficult and uneasy questions about, what does this mean? And always a gentle and reassuring voice that it will be okay. It will be different, but it will be okay. And we will work together collaboratively to continue to bring about the best results. Terry's participated in the selection of at least 3 superintendents, 2 that are permanent, 1 that was an interim. And in all cases, fair and good decisions, some that don't always work out, but when those challenges arose, Terry was there to lead the board and to lead the district in good and solid resolution, and always a better outcome moving forward. The development and funding of Fund 46 in a 20-year capital improvement plan. The referendum, a challenging situation in as much as something needed to be done, and the district needed to move in a different direction relative to some of its facilities, and Terry was very instrumental in leading those efforts forward. And just a couple of other things. I think Scott's back there, but he may not know, but the highest ACT ever in the district history occurred over his time. And taxes, while we always get hammered on taxes, there's no question about that, but if you look at the taxes over Terry's tenure, they have been fair and they've been reasonable, and they've risen at a rate less than the CPIU over the same time that Terry served on the board. So I think that is actually remarkable. Over these 15 years, Terry has truly led in true servant leadership style. His wisdom and his experience, he brought all of that to the board with a great deal of energy. And he made tough decisions based solely on what was important and necessary for kids, not what was expedient for political purposes or perhaps easy. And there were some difficult decisions that were made over those 15 years. He's committed his time to raising achievement in the levels of all students throughout the district, and he does truly embody our mission, every student, every day. And so, not often enough do you hear thank you, but on behalf of the entire board and on behalf, I think, of the district and the community, thank you. And as a parent, you mentioned 2,850 graduates. 4 of those are mine that walked that stage during the time that you presided here, and thanks to you and to Mr. Johnson and all the wonderful staff here, they have achieved and continue to achieve and will achieve well prepared. So on behalf of the board, sincere appreciation and gratitude. Thank you for all that you've done in these 15 years of service to our district.
Thanks, Paul. It's been a pleasure.
We selected Paul to make this.
That's fine.
So Terry, on behalf of the board, we have a thing that we'd like to present to you. It says Grafton School District Board of Education, Terry Ziegler, 2003 to 2018, that has hands across it to represent that. And I'd be remiss not to take one opportunity, though, to show the picture that I showed at the Grafton Chamber. Here's Terry. And it does represent how little his kids were at that time, and look now you fast forward. And as the board president, I mean, James sort of referenced this, good luck with the rest of your Mondays, but the amount of time that you've spent in our district, in the good times and in the bad, has taken away from your family. And you know, that's showing sort of leadership to your kids, as well as to your wife, and we appreciate them sharing you with us over the last 15 years, and your leadership will definitely be missed, and we hope this memento brings positive smile to your face whenever you look at it, and it brings back good memories of your time here in our district.
Appreciate it, thanks. I'll take your hand as well. Thanks, Joe. Oh, shake your hand again. As you all know, this only happens with a team. I've had great teams around me, not just on the board, but the teachers, the administration, so, you know, this person just has to run the meetings. That's about all this is. So Paul's been very kind and giving me maybe too much credit, but it's been great. I will really miss this, but it's time to go. So thank you very much for the time here. This has been a great experience. I'll keep track of all of you in the papers. We have another big piece of business here. I know I have to read the...
Oh, you have to read that.
Okay, so I will need to get a motion to convene in closed session to consider preliminary notice of non-renewal of teaching contracts, performance-related data of administrators over which the board has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and a parent request involving personal history. This is in accordance with Wisconsin State Statutes 19851 C and F. Thanks. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Yes.
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 And yes.
You're so moving, Nina.